We got Suvarna.
Myrna, Candace.
Hey, Myrna, Candace.
Hey.
Okay. Good to see everybody.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Zoomers. So who do we have?
Suvarna.
Good
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Johnson. And then Felicia.
Yeah.
Okay. Suvarna, let me know when you hear about your offer.
Yeah, sure, Patrice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason and Felicia. All right. Is everyone ready? What time is it? I put my phone away.
9:08.
Oh, I guess maybe I should leave that out so I can track. So I can look at the time from time to time. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for coming today. So I am Catherine Yam. This is Ann.
Hi.
Say your last name.
Hergenreder.
Hergenreder.
Ann is fine.
So quick intro so you know who's teaching your class today. I've been both in real estate and with Keller Williams since January 2006. So 16 years. I've been a solo agent for about the first 5 years or so. I then started to build my own team and manage my own team for however many years. And as of 2020, I folded my team and joined another team. So I'm now part of the Pace of Richmond. And then like units wise, my biggest year, I think was 67 deals. So that's when I had my small team. But really I've been, I kind of broke myself and all my systems when I did that because I was 75% buyers. And since then I've been selling about 40 units on average. And with that 40 units also taking about 6 weeks off a year. So I was all about creating a business that created that balance. 95%, at least 95% of my business is working by referral. So I do those numbers without paying for leads. So that just as different people are standing up here, you get to see that we all do business slightly different ways. And so that just helps give you some context there. So Ann will tell you a little bit about herself now, and she'll be doing the second half of the class.
So welcome. We're really thrilled that you're here, and same to online. Thanks for zooming in. I'm Ann Hergenreder, and I've been involved in real estate one way or the other, mostly investing for lots and lots of years, more than you want to know. But I've been licensed for 5 years and with Keller Williams for 4.5, which has made all the difference in my business. I'm striving to have a business more like Catherine's that has balance. So that's what we're all learning all the time. But I am an individual agent. I practice primarily on the northern neck of Virginia, so lots of rural properties and riverfront properties. I'm certified as a senior real estate specialist and also a resort and second home property specialist. So that's kind of fun. And this year I will do 18 to 20 units and around $7 million. So that's growth for me. And that's what's important, always doing a little bit more and learning, especially in negotiations. So we're ready to rock and roll, right?
All right. You guys ready? Yes. All right, so before we dive into today's topic, we first want to hear about your progress with the daily success system from yesterday. So who wants to report in? Anthony.
Oh, here.
Oh, come on.
Yesterday, I said like Monday.
That's Monday? Well, I don't know, every day you're in the business, right?
Oh, from yesterday. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So.
What was your question? Sorry.
Reporting it from your daily success system. So the daily success system is, does that include the lead generation, lead follow-up, transaction? No, this is everything with
Daily success system. You want me to?
Oh, the conversations,
It's-
context.
Exactly.
There you go. Conversation
Exactly.
contracts. I figured by session 18, you guys should know. So how was your day yesterday? Who made the contacts? Brittany.
So yesterday I did Legion, and I was more intentional about like wanting to ask for what I want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was given like a testimony that I got my clients' closing costs paid for like 100%.
Wow.
And so I will use that to talk up my database and say, although interest rates are increasing, it's still a great time. My client walked away with 0 to the table. I can help you. Just let me know if you and your family is interested. And they passed my number all around to like 2 people yesterday. So I was really happy about being intentional yesterday.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds huge success. So you're intentional about asking for the
Just
business
ask.
and you used a story to plant the seed.
Yeah, because usually I just reach out and just always just saying hi.
I appreciate it. Go ahead and grab seats on the white table and make sure, try to sit next to someone because we'll be doing some things to be cut off. Thank you. I'm Catherine, by the way. Oh, yeah. Anyone online want to report out? How did lead gen go yesterday? Myrna, Candace, Jason, did any of you make calls yesterday?
I didn't make any calls yesterday, but I did talk to 2 of my past clients. Both of them actually were responding to calls that I had made to them.
Okay.
And one actually was a client that I had been really trying to get in contact with for the last 3-4 months. And he just wasn't responding to my phone calls. So finally yesterday, he responded and said that they're ready to buy a house.
I love it, Myrna. And that is a success story that we'll hear over and over where people just will not respond and you start to second guess yourself and you start to make up stories in your head. And the thing is, until they tell me no, I'm not going to stop. Because this happens over and over again, where all of a sudden 4 months later or 6 months later, they call and they apologize to me. And at the end of the day, none of my calls were urgent. And that's what happens is they just let the voicemail sit there, until sometimes they don't want to call us until they know exactly what they want to do. There's a lot of different things behind that, behind the personality not calling. So good job sticking with it, Myrna. That's a great success story for everyone to hear.
Thank you.
What challenges did anyone encounter? Does anyone want to share a challenge for the group?
My challenge is trying to find time to call all of these people.
That's fair, especially when you're in class all morning.
My challenge when, like yesterday, I have almost 4 people. I put them in my database, and then my challenge when you ask, I pass my phone number, I show them the Keller Williams ad and this and that. I try to guide them through the Keller Williams app before they leave, because I know once they leave, they're not gonna do it. So sometimes I feel like I'm pushy, but I'm not trying to push. I'm trying to, make sure that I have their all information.
Yeah.
So some of them they respond, some of them they like in rush.
Yeah.
But at the end I win. So and even though they like some of them in a year. Yeah. Yesterday I have 1 year ready and 2 there want to wait for a year or so. Yeah. And the 4th one, she wants her kids to graduate from school. So
what's the challenge?
So the challenge when you get the like try to give them all the information so you keep in touch with them. So but at the end I win, but I keep talking to them, So this is the challenge.
No, that's fair. And so does anyone want to help Myrna with her challenge of finding time to make the calls? Has anyone learned any tips or tricks to be more resilient with that? Brittany?
I talk a lot. So I'm like always want to talk. Sorry.
Yeah. That's great. Energy.
I would say like to time block and stay focused. So if like what helps me is like when I wake up, meditate, whatever I choose to do, and I make a list and I choose not to get up until like my list is done. You know what I mean? So it's like real estate, make 10 contacts, follow up with someone. And then it's like, well, Brittany, I know you want to get to that, but you try to stay focused on one task at a time. And that helps me be a little bit more successful with my business.
So you create your list and then you prioritize it?
Yeah, create my list.
You don't go to number 2 till number 1 is done? That's so hard for real estate agents.
I know, it's not easy all the time.
No, it's really good clarity. So, and part of what I'm hearing is that you get real clear from the moment you get out of bed, and that sets your day out right. Were you able to hear that, Myrna?
I heard her, but my day starts out busy because I'm up like around 5 o'clock in the morning and I walk until like 7:30. So then I have to get ready for this class. It really hadn't been a problem in the past until we started doing these classes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes that's going to throw things out of balance. So that's where what I would challenge people to do is when you're having those days where it's hard to get 10, sometimes we'll build that up in our heads and we won't start a project if we don't think we can finish it. So make it so small that it's a goal you can't not hit. So make the goal one call. You can make one call while you're driving from when you leave here, wherever you're driving to next, you can make one call. And that way you still maintain that the momentum and building the habit of making calls every day. Is there anyone here who cannot commit to making one call today? Raise your hand if you can commit. Can you make one call? All right. So that will be your way. When you know you're going to be in class for 3 hours, that might be sometimes where you adjust those goals, but you still hit it every day and you're building up that confidence in your mind and you're getting all those endorphins from knowing that you won the day each day and that you're not falling off the wagon. You're not beating yourself up. Oh, I didn't make my 10 calls. Now tomorrow I have to make 20. No, the goal is one call. If you're in a day where you're full of appointments and all those things, that way you still have every day, you're still working on the business.
Talking about my challenge. Remember we were talking about challenge?
Yes.
So my challenge yesterday was last night actually, and a client closed on a house on Friday. She did not home warranty and had it in writing. Her husband was like, I will get this at a later date.
Yeah.
So yesterday was Tuesday of height bus.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so she texted me and was like, Brittany, what about my home warranty? Did the seller pay for it or am I supposed to pay for it? And so I sent her the email, so you guys decide to do this at a later date.
Yeah.
Yet my challenge is I still feel like it was my fault. Like, like maybe I should have pushed it and really didn't give them an option. Can you speak to that for me?
I think you did all the right things, especially if you got the paperwork signed.
Okay.
People are going to make their own decisions all the time. However, that is where you can use that story for people going forward. I don't really push home warranties either, though. And honestly, I don't know that home warranty would cover a pipe that burst.
Okay.
It may not.
Okay.
There's only certain things that they cover. So that's one of those things as newer agents, you can pull out all those home warranties and read them into, really get really detailed into those so you have a better understanding of what it covers and doesn't cover. Yeah, that is a big mindset challenge. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in this class too, even when it comes to negotiations, about keeping our emotions between the lines. And so that is where there's an element of making sure we don't take responsibility for all the decisions our clients make. You can give them a story and say, hey, here's a reason why you might want to get the home warranty right away. Here's what happened to clients of ours, right? So you can use stories to pass on information. And at the end of the day, most of my buyers still choose not to get a home warranty, and that's fine, as long as we gave them options. So you did all the right things. Also, sometimes you can still quickly put a home warranty on, and they can still call and make a claim. And the biggest thing is, whether the home warranty covers it or not. But yeah,
Thank you.
it's a fun challenge. All right, so today we are going to cover what negotiation is. So the 3 P's of negotiation: prepare, present, and position, and then tips for successful negotiations. So by the end of today, you will be able to explain negotiating offers. You'll use the 3 P's approach to negotiation. You're going to recall and practice the key skills of negotiation. And to start thinking about what you will learn today, let's consider what questions we might have and what we'd like to learn more about. So what did you come here to learn about today? Raise your hand or shout it out. AJ.
How to speak to the client, the buyer, or the seller about negotiations. How to start the conversation.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else? So for those of you online, what we're hoping to learn today is how to start the conversation, how to talk with clients, in case you couldn't hear that. Anyone else? What are your goals today?
Somebody on.
No, that's you.
Oh,
I can't see your name, sorry.
oh, Jamia.
Jamia, okay, thank you.
And yeah, I would say my biggest thing that I'm trying to learn today when it comes to negotiation, especially with the market shifting, how my clients can kind of take advantage of negotiating, for their knowledge as well.
Okay.
Don't depend on me, how can I better educate my clients when it comes to negotiating so they can get a better deal depending on what they're looking for,
Okay, great. So how to better educate your clients and how to even get a sense of how to get a better deal and understanding the shifting market.
Yes.
Okay, we'll touch on some of that, absolutely. Anything else that is a goal for today?
I agree. It's like, should I really negotiate? Y'all know you want the house and I negotiated too hard and it's like, we lost the house. Like, where's the happy medium of I'm protecting you, you're happy, and you still got what you want without saying, I need home warranty, I need this, I need this, I need this. And they're like, no, thank you.
Okay,
So I
great.
need that.
Awesome. We'll go into some of those conversations. Absolutely.
And
AJ.
also, how about the market? Some of them, they ask, is it the buyer market or the seller market? Or the different. So this is the challenge also, like what you should say.
That's statistical. So statistically, we're in a seller's market right now. That's all stats. Those are numbers. Numbers don't lie, right? However, if a house is overpriced in a seller's market, they create a buyer's market. So that's the only tricky thing. But statistically, if you're priced right for your location and condition, it is statistically a seller's market. Balanced market, so anything between 0 to 3 months of inventory is a seller's market. Between 3 to 6 is balanced. Anything over 6 is a buyer's. You see slightly different numbers depending on what resource you're getting the information from. Some of them say between 4 to 6. I like 0 to 3 sellers, 3 to 6 is more neutral, balanced market, and then over 6 months is a clear buyer's market. So that's the stats thing. All right, I did not write down all your questions. I'm expecting you to remember them or few questions, your goals for what we learned today. So as we go through the content, please listen to hear if your questions are answered. We can always circle back to them at the end. I'm always happy to stay for another 20 minutes or so to dive a little deeper if anything's still lingering. Sound good?
Okay.
All right, so can someone read this out loud for me? How about Amber?
It's not something to be avoided.
Perfect. So what limiting beliefs do you have about negotiations, if any? Do you have any limiting beliefs?
I would say my limiting beliefs when it comes to negotiation is, I would say the expectation of the outcome. So a client comes to you, they want to, negotiate the price, this, that, and, I would say my biggest, limiting belief is the expectation part. This is a possibility. We're going to fight for this, but it's not guaranteed this will be the outcome, So I feel like sometimes, when you say that to certain people, in their head that, oh, I'm not going to get the deal. It's limiting their beliefs too, So, and, I'm one of those people, I'm really realistic. I like to give you the good, the bad, but again, not limiting and focusing too much of the bad because negotiation is a duality, this and that, learning to be more comfortable with having the duality of the negotiation and not the one, because your clients or you can focus too much on, oh, I'm not going to get this, but again.
Right. So that actually to me sounds like a very balanced approach.
Okay.
So yeah, so limiting beliefs are usually something that it's something that we think we can't do or we can't get. Is it Jamia?
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? So I think Jamia just shared a really good approach, which is absolutely, we can ask for this. We're going to ask for this. We're going to do our best to try to get it for you. And there are a couple of outcomes that can happen. So you're setting someone up to not expect everything that they're getting. I think that's a very fair approach. I always let them know I'm willing to ask. right? I'm not going to negotiate against my own client or tell them no, but I'm going to explain a couple different scenarios to them, of course, and let the decision be theirs. Anyone else have any limiting beliefs when it comes to negotiation? Feeling pretty comfortable? All right. So who has ever bought a car? Raise your hand. Have you bought a car? Yeah. How many of you negotiated the price of the car when you were buying it? Were you able to negotiate the price at all? Yeah. So car purchases are typically negotiated because they are high dollar items, and that you tend to hold on to them for a long time. So an even bigger purchase that is negotiated is the buying and selling of homes. In the market we've been in, oftentimes we're negotiating a lot more, not negotiating money off. But that is shifting. So negotiation is an important part of the real estate agent's job. And so in Ignite, you've already been learning through the NAR statistics that a real estate agent's ability to negotiate is one of the top reasons why buyers and sellers look for an agent to help them in their search or sale. So this is something where you want to continue to sharpen the skill set on this. And this is where you come to every Keller Williams class, take every single scripting class you can. Language of Sales is one of the classes taught by Bold, is one of the virtual classes. I suggest taking that at least 2 or 3 different times. All of that just layers on and builds your skill set for negotiations, because that is one of the top reasons why the public is hiring you, is they want you between them and the other side and fighting on their behalf. And that's how you will win those clients for life too. Okay. That's not right. There we go. Okay. So negotiation is the bargaining process, and bargaining is a give and take between 2 or more parties, each with its own aims, needs, and viewpoints. So everyone is involved in seeking to discover common ground and reach an agreement to settle a matter of mutual concern or resolve a conflict. So negotiation is where one of our Y4 C2Ts plays a big role. So when it comes to negotiation, which one do you think is the most fitting? Say a little louder. Yeah, win-win or no deal. I want to make sure they can hear. Anyone else? Or any others you think? Trust, good one. Think anything else that's in negotiations?
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, the whole list.
Yeah,
all of them always, right? Yeah, win-win or no deal, I think, is probably the leader, and I think all the answers were great answers too. So as a Keller Williams agent, you're always working to find a win-win solution for all parties. By being kind, fair, and professional, you have the best chance of reaching an agreement that is best for your clients. And finding common ground means that you, your clients, the co-op agent, and their clients are all getting what they need from the transaction. So never forget that you're building relationships with all parties from the first contact. So with our Y4C2Ts, you've got the win-win or no deal, integrity in all things, pretty important when it comes to negotiations, communication, seek first to understand, trust starts with honesty, and then our book shares with us, keep emotions under control and never be defensive. Has anyone in here taken Bold? Okay, awesome. We have a couple of Bold graduates. Fabulous. So one of the Bold laws is keep your emotions between the lines. So as soon as I read that keep emotions under control, it immediately made me think of that Bold law, right? So keep your emotions between the lines. And that is where something that's really important to keep in mind is that not everyone actually knows how to do that. So you're going to be going against real estate agents or in conversations with attorneys on the other side where they aren't working on keeping their emotions between the lines. Sometimes you'll have agents who are taking on the emotions of their clients. So if their clients are screaming at them or beating up on them, they're going to turn around and they're going to scream at us as the co-op agent. And so that's where it's really learning to keep don't react to them, right? Let's not take on their emotions and add to it in the deal. So that's where, when someone is in that space, I quickly recognize that I don't need to respond to 80% of what they're writing in email or saying to me in person. I need to really listen for the bullet points of what matters for what we want right now. So the filter, the great filter in this case, is not for me to get in my attorney stance and be like, oh yeah, I can win this debate, and start, picking apart whatever it is that they're yelling at me about. Is I have to throw on the filter of, what do I want out of this conversation? What do my clients want out of this conversation? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I'm right. That's not what my client needs out of the conversation, right? So I'm going to drop everything, all the wrong things that they're throwing at me and yelling at me about. There's no response to any of that. I'm going to pick the one nugget that actually matters to the negotiation, and that's the only thing I'm going to address, right? So, so number 2 is huge. And it's even more important for us to do it because not every other co-op agent out there is doing it for themselves, right? And so that's one more way that we're protecting our clients, is by not stepping into that emotional arena. The last one is give people grace. So put yourself in the other client's shoes. Understand that so like if you're the listing agent, you have an understanding that the buyer may be losing their dream home. And so give that grace when you're having those conversations with the other agents. Also, as the buyer's agent, if you're frustrated that the listing agent didn't call you, give them some grace. They may have had 15 offers, and they may have been trying to respond to everyone while still putting dinner on the table for their family and trying to get bed at a reasonable time, right? So put yourself in the other side's shoes, because this market has been crazy. And so just always show grace and show that front, because you never know when you're gonna be writing an offer on that agent's, listing again. So always start with that politeness. Okay, so in the last Ignite session, you learned about offers. So when it was simplified, when an offer is accepted, it moves through the process toward closing, right? However, it's not always that simple. If an offer is rejected or countered, then we negotiate with the other side to reach a win-win agreement for everyone. And it's important to note that every transaction is unique. So negotiation may not always happen, at this point of the transaction. And of course, before we even get to this point, you've lead generated. You've gotten into a relationship with your lead through follow-up in order to get an appointment, and you've gotten a signed agreement. So of course, there's a lot of stuff happening before this. If you're the listing agent, you've helped your client make the best choices to best showcase their home and market that home. So this is where they're giving us a reminder to get to this point in the transaction. There's been a lot of time, money, and effort invested. So you shouldn't lose the deal because your negotiation skills aren't up to par. Today we'll focus on establishing your negotiation skills so that you can close with confidence and create a win-win. So in your participant guide, do you see this page?
No.
Who do you negotiate with?
Page 14, maybe? Page 14? No, I don't know what this stuff is telling us. It says refer to participant guide. Okay. Then I was just to ask you first, who do you negotiate with? This tells us at least up here. So who do you negotiate with? Good answer, Anthony. Who else do you negotiate with?
On the other side.
On the other side.
Good
Anthony, what
answer.
page is that where you found it?
Third page.
Is the third page of your booklet of section
18.3.
section 18?
18.3.
18.3.
It says what is negotiation?
Yeah.
You just don't know like that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the pages on my book are different than your pages, so you might have to help me. Good class.
Why does it say like your client when you're trying to see what your client needs are? You're not really negotiating with them, are you?
That might be a little tricky wording.
Okay.
My belief is that you're having a conversation with your client to seek out what's most important to them. I will, like, my goal is not ever have my client feel like I'm negotiating with them.
Yeah.
What I am going to do is share stories with them. So if I think they are doing something that's not going to work in this current market, then I have the ability to share some stories with them. Like, yes, we can do this. And, I understand how, have you guys heard of the feel, felt, found script? Feel, felt, found?
Yes.
There are a lot of clients who have felt that same way. They get frustrated. They're afraid they might be overspending on a home. And so, so we have found that in this market, the list price is just a suggestion. It's just a starter price, but fair market value may be anywhere between that price and $100,000 above. So feel, felt, that's how they felt.
I know how you feel.
Okay, yeah, feel, felt, found. Okay, so this is what we have found. Is, fair market value is anywhere within this range. So we're going to look at a couple of recent sales together to figure out where we think, fair market value should be for this home. And any offer within that range, you're still paying fair market value. Does that sound good? Right. So it's, I'm not directly negotiating with them as in, oh, no, you can't offer 200. I think you need to come higher. I'm going to teach them through stories and circle them back to their motivation. How much, we rank this home on a scale of 1 to 7. You said this was a 7. This is the only home we have ranked a 7, the last 10 or 15 homes that we've seen. So do we want to put together an offer that gives you the best chance of winning, or are you willing to walk away from this one? So, just asking questions to make them, come up with the answers that are going to be the best best offer for them. So on one hand, maybe you are negotiating with your client. I just think the tactic is slightly different than when you're facing the other side. Except always want to present things in a manner that I am 100% on their side, right? I am representing them and I'm going to fight for them. At times, though, I'm also like, sometimes we have to help them get out of their own way and understand the market that we're in if they truly want to help, right? That's a great question.
Can I speak to that really quickly? I said, in that mindset of like not thinking of it as a negotiation, I let my clients know, like, you're the emotion, I'm the logic. So sometimes it might come off as something because you're in your feelings about it, but I'm really thinking through the data and the statistics and seeing the things that you don't see, right? So I'm bringing to you the logic so you can bring your decision for simple. So that's kind of how I look at it. So it's not a negotiation. I'm just helping you move through it to get to the other side logically. Absolutely. So that's kind of like my spiel with my clients, and they go, because they know, like, I'm really mad because, or I'm worried because, or I feel because. Yeah. And that's cool. Let's think through that. Yeah. Because,
absolutely. I love how you put those words on the table too, because it really helps them hear what you're saying. You're giving them the filter to hear that information. And when someone's all up in their feels, I think reflective listening is really important too. So it's where you repeat back what you've heard them say, and to make sure that you have understanding. A lot of times people just need to feel heard and then they'll move past it. And that was one of the mistakes I made in my early years, is I'm super logical and pragmatic and I have very little empathy naturally. Like I had to learn empathy, like it was going to the gym and building a muscle. So I did not understand that people would say things. I'm like, I don't understand why that matters. Like, this is a logical decision to make, right? So you'll open up much better conversations, and they will be more receptive to you once they feel heard. So allow them to be in their feels, reflective, listen back. Doesn't mean you ever agree with them. I'm not justifying their emotions are not logical. Because people will make up stories in their head about what the other side is doing. So I'm not going to feed into that. I'm not going to add to the story. However, I will do some reflective listening to make sure they feel heard, and then move them forward by using a combination of emotion and logic. And that's where that feel, felt, found is really powerful for me, because it forces me to add emotion to my logic, right? When you do the feel, felt, found. So that's where language of sales is super helpful for that. I love that you do that with clients. So it's great. Great share. Thank you. All right. So you're sharing with us that you are always negotiating with your clients and with the agent on the other side. Don't forget, this is your career. You continue to conduct business in the same market. You're likely to encounter the same agents on the other side of the transactions over and over again. So now that you know who you negotiate with, what do you think gets negotiated in a transaction? What do you think gets negotiated?
The price of it.
Ding, ding, ding. What else?
Closing costs.
Inspection.
Click the screen with the mouse. You admitted it.
What happened? Got it. Okay. So yeah, terms is overall arching category, and you already started giving me some terms. So those are great. What other terms come to mind?
I would say contingencies, like.
Great answer.
Closing date appraisals, what phase.
Yeah.
All of this stuff.
Everything. Everything's negotiable.
The playground in the backyard.
That was really good. Yeah, exactly.
Bringing bees to property.
The flowers in front, everything's negotiable. So price, of course, is usually a primary factor, which is typically, the cost of the home. But anything else that can cost that seller money, it comes out of their net, that kind of gets, falls under dollar signs. And then, of course, the terms could be financial, time-based, or both. And you all provided a lot of great examples, so it's perfect. Did you say possession agreement? Possession?
I did not.
That's another one I'd love to throw out there. That's been a big one in the last 2 years. Possession agreement is so buyer may close on the home, but the seller retains possession after the closing date. So rent back is like an older term, and it's a more casual term, but it's not the legal term. Our documents, if you go into the CVR MLS or transaction desk, it is possession by seller or possession by purchaser.
Wow.
Those are the two documents that you would search for in the contract documents.
Is that temporary, like possession by seller, like when he wants to rent back?
Yes.
So he found another house?
Yes, yeah. And so you'll go into a lot more detail during one of the contract writing classes, but they would hopefully pull out all these addendums. But I also want to offer that up because it's been really popular, and you'll still, I think, continue to see it in any competing offer situations for the next few quarters, year. It's not going to be automatic on every deal like it was 6 months ago. But that is one that you want to print out. You want to read every single word and paragraph and truly understand it and practice filling it out. Because that is when you're stating a lot. And you also want to make sure you're using the proper term. So in Virginia, it's possession. It's not a rent back, because if it was rent, then you would fall under the Landlord Tenant Act, where we specifically have possession agreements. So there is no tenant landlord act that covers this agreement. This is separate from renting and tenants.
So when they do say rent back in MLS, do they mean that's exactly what they're saying? Like, I will pay you rent?
Yeah, so if they're asking for rent back, just think of it as a more casual term, but it's not our legal document. So that's where I just want you to be clear. clear. So yeah, rent, if someone's been in the business a long time or was just taught that term, they're going to use that term. It's interchangeable, like in conversation, but when you go into the contract documents and search for it, it's called a possession agreement. That. And so on page 1, when you check the box to say what addenda you have attached to the contract, you call it a possession agreement. It's not called a lease back. It's not called a rent back. None of those other terms are the actual legal document terms. Does that make sense? So yeah, you will see that in agent notes because that's what people happily still refer it to it as.
Do you call the listing agent and say, okay, which one are you referring to? Are you gonna pay rent, or you just talking about you want possession without just time?
Yeah. So if they're saying, so a lot of times, like in our frequently asked questions or in our agent only remarks, we may go ahead and offer up. So if we're anticipating, we're at a price point and location where we're anticipating multiple offers, we're going to go ahead and tell you all the obvious things that we want. Okay. We want a closing date of November 15th. Okay. And we want a possession agreement for 21 days. Okay. Or, through December 5th or whatever it is, right?
That's
like
the buyer, right? The buyer.
No, I'm the listing agent.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm the listing agent. I'm telling the buyer agents, this is what we want you to put in your offer to us because we're anticipating a multiple offer situation.
Right. Okay.
Even if there's not a multiple offer situation, we can still say, this is what we want.
Right.
And then as the buyer and buyer agent, you can figure out what terms you actually want to offer. If you're the only offer in, you can decide if you want to include those or don't want to include those.
Okay.
That gets into a kind of negotiation. Like for the last offer I wrote, they wanted possession until what, December 18th or whatever. We were closing December 1st. So I talked with the clients and I said, hey, it's a multiple offer situation. We should not charge them any deposit. We should not charge them any rent or the rent back. So in the possession by seller agreement, we said, hey, you can stay there till the 18th free of charge. We're charging you $0. You put a payment in order to make our offer stand out more. So that goes back into the kind of the negotiations about, hey, you can ask for X, Y, and Z if you want to, but if it's a multiple offer situation, you want to do things that strategically make your offer stand out better.
Yeah. So normally if a listing agent has put that, if they're requesting a possession agreement, it usually means a seller or a rent back. They're usually mean seller. Seller rent back until what date? So they're usually telling you how much time they need. And then you as the buyer agent get to decide, are you going to charge them for the possession or not, per diems or for the month or whatever. Now, if you're the only offer in, then you may be able to charge them. If you're in a multiple offer situation, everyone was dropping all those charges. So we've been getting, free possession agreements for the last 18, 24 months. Some of that's, starting to shift. It just depends on, now it's each individual deal is kind of its own thing and you have to figure out what's happening with that particular deal. It's not an automatic. 6 months ago, it didn't matter what poop you're putting on the market. It's getting multiple offers, but now it's back to price, location, and condition. Not everything's automatic.
So Catherine, this is Burnett. Got a question on that.
Yeah.
So it's helpful sometimes, and I was going to ask, how often do you suggest that if that closing date is not that important, if they're willing to extend the closing date rather than go through all of the possession after closing?
So it's always a fair question, and I think it matters if you're in a multiple offer situation or not.
Okay.
Multiple offers, I'm going to get what I'm going to get.
Right.
You're going to give me what I want, or you're not getting the offer, right? Like you're not winning.
Yeah.
In most cases, unless there's something considerably better, about the offer that we might be willing to bend on that. Sorry, let me backtrack on that. We actually took an offer where they were really uncomfortable with possession, and my clients had some flexibility. So we did push the closing date. So they were financially in a position where they were able to buy their new house, and could move out and move in before they even close on the one they're selling. And in a perfect world, that we would have gotten their money sooner. But the best offer we had was considerably higher than the others, and all cash and waived inspection and everything. So for them, we said, okay, the possession makes you nervous. Well, that's not that important to us. We love all your other terms, so we'll go ahead and close later.
Okay.
So it is always a fair question. It just depends on what you're up against and like what the other terms are. Now they were better in every other term, and this one didn't really matter to my sellers. But I have a bunch of other sellers who really want to do one smooth move. So they need their money out of the home in order to, purchase their next or whatever they need for the next move. And then they need 2 weeks to move. And so in the market, helping the sellers make one smooth move is totally reasonable. In a market, we told them the first problem we got to solve is selling your home. So sell your home and go find a rental, right? That's when we're in a buyer's market. Buyers don't have to take off of possession agreements at all. So that's something that's going to shift with the markets. But really good question.
Yeah, great for explaining that.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So Brittany, that you brought up a really good point too about what you read in the MLS, because I made a note to make sure to point this out to y'all, to read the agent only comments first and or look for special attachments. Did you know there's attachments to the MLS listings? There's a little icon there so you can look for attachments. So agents may have frequently asked questions. They may already have the HOA documents attached. There are a number of things that may already be included in that listing. So read through all of those documents before you call the agent. Remember, if you're in a multiple offer situation, you don't read anything. You call the agent, you ask them boneheaded questions. They think it's boneheaded because they already provided the information, right? So now you're being a pain in their butt. You're wasting their time. And that's a mark against you and your client when it comes to multiple offers, because they've already like, oh, these agents don't know how to read directions, which means they're going to be a pain in the butt to work with over the next 60 days until this thing is closed. So that is where you want to do your due diligence. So you're always putting yourself, in the best light. So a way that you can use questioning to determine what might be negotiated is to ask the other agent what is important to the seller besides the price. I said those things in the wrong order. So what's important to the seller besides the price? So that was where my tip was, read everything online first, right? So then when I call them, I'll say, I read your note that the seller wants this, this, and this. If I have more questions, then I'm going to add to it, or I'm going to go a little deeper. So if they're asking for possession and I know my clients are a little worried about it, I'm not going to tell them I'm not going to tell them that. I'm just say, walk me through this a little bit. What's important to your sellers about that possession? I just want a little more information because there may be another way I can get creative and give them something.
Before you communicate with your buyer, right?
Doesn't matter. I'm just constant. I'm constant communication with my client. So I need to know what their questions are too, right?
Right.
Any questions about that?
No, that's very important. Offer from Friday, she didn't have anything in agent notes, and she didn't even ask about a rent back. But when I called her, she said, my client really want to stay past Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. She didn't even mention that. So we knew that we wanted to do a longer closing, so they can stay for the Thanksgiving holiday. Yeah, so that was very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those calls are really helpful. And I would say if you get an agent's voicemail, immediately follow up with a text message. Yeah. And or an email. Every agent kind of has their own style. My phone doesn't give me my voicemails for another day or two. So, wow. Yeah. So always text me. Yeah, so that follow-up call is key. There are a lot of times where strategically we might not put too many details in the listing, because if we don't know, if we're not anticipating multiple offers, then we're not gonna make demands, in the listing as a listing agent. We're gonna be a little softer on that, because at this point, like, we don't know if we're gonna get an offer or not. If we get any offer, and in this case, everything's up for discussion. If you know that your buyer wants to negotiate on price, then that's where I really like to know what the closing date other ideal things for the seller. So then you can present them with, we'll give you what you want over here, but then this is what we need over here. So that's just one way to approach it. All right. Let's share some ahas so far. Any ahas from the first portion?
I'm learning that it's okay to negotiate. Well, of course we know that, but
Yeah.
it's really okay knowing that everything is really negotiable, and for me not to be fearful thinking that I'm gonna hurt my client if I ask for too much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm learning that it's okay to say we want this.
Absolutely.
Can I just add in something?
Yeah.
I mean, I think exactly what you said, Brittany and Catherine said earlier, it's all a conversation. And one of the things in that agent to agent conversation that Catherine was talking about, because every agent communicates differently, and depending on how long the property's been on the market, they may or may not have updated their listing comments. I always, and I'd like your input on this, but I always end with, what else do I need to know? You know, that open-ended question, because sometimes it's, well, I've just learned, or based on whatever has happened in somebody's life, or offers, or, you know, they will get new information that, you know, sometimes they'll go, just bring me an offer. And other times it's, you know, if they don't get this, then they're going to dig their heels in there. But that open-ended question can be really helpful. Sometimes the answer is, hey, it's all in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them will be really short. Some of them that will just open the door for them to give you more information. So yeah, so I love that question. I love what would you like me to know? I like asking what question have I not asked yet that I should have? Anything like that keeps that conversation flowing. So that's some good scripting right there to end on that. Any other ahas so far? Really quick check-in. Okay. Okay, so with today's agenda, so first you've learned what can be negotiated, pricing and terms. Now you're going to learn a model that you can use as you work through negotiations. This model is called the 3 Ps of negotiations. So the 3 Ps, and you have this page in your guide. Maybe Anthony can tell us what page number it is, but you've got the 3 Ps approach page in your participant guide. So negotiation is a skill that anyone can learn and can be perfected with experience. The best practice you can follow in the 3 Ps of negotiation: prepare, present, and position. And at a high level, the model is to prepare. Preparation is the key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiation process. Tyler, do you want to read present?
Move into the negotiation process by presenting the offer.
Perfect. Lakeisha, do you want to read position?
Move both parties closer until you have full agreement.
Great. So throughout this next session, we will go in depth into each of the 3 pieces and spend some time practicing and role modeling each step. So if you still need more practice after today's session, you can always use the enrichment time and Ignite and find a partner to practice. So the first P, prepare, details the actions and steps that you'll take before entering a negotiation. So to prepare, you need to know your goal. You need to have a clear goal for reaching a win-win agreement in which the buyer and seller are satisfied with the outcome of the negotiation, right? So remind your client of their motivation for moving or buying the house, and that when the contract closes, they'll be able to move on with their lives. The second is know your client. So make sure you fully understand your client's goals. Learn the areas in which they are willing to negotiate and where they will stand firm. So at what point in the process do you get to know your client and do you learn what their goals are?
Initial consultation.
Thanks. You guys have been paying attention. I like it. Go Ignite. So if you want my 3 key questions that I ask when I'm doing a lead intake or a specific buyer intake or seller intake, so it's very early. So this is even before my buyer consultation. This is, what's the other word that they call it. I call it intake, but they call it when you're the discovery. I call it my discovery. Yeah, discovery call. That's a great word too. When you're like validating a lead, like right, like you're not going to automatically schedule a consultation unless you
Screen
qualifying a lead. Thank you. So in that initial conversation when you're qualifying a lead, these are my 3 big questions that I always like to have throughout early on. So the first is, what is your ideal timing? So in a perfect world, when would you be closing and moving into your new home, for a buyer? For a seller, it's a perfect world. When would you have this house under contract? When would you be selling this home, right? So ideal timing is number 1. The number 2 big picture question is, what's your motivation? What's your motivation? What made you reach out to me about this property? What's your motivation in buying a home? Like if someone's a renter, that's where they say things like, I'm tired of throwing my rent away. I want to build equity. I love my job. I decided I'm staying in Richmond, so now I know what to buy. Before I thought I was going to move, like find out what that motivation is. They want roots. They want a bigger house, whatever it is, right? So number 2 is motivation. Number 3 is, what are your expectations of me? What are your expectations of me and my team in helping you buy this home? What are your expectations of me and my team in helping you sell this home? And sometimes people will struggle a little bit with, well, I've never done this before. I don't even know what to say. Okay. When you think about any salespeople, like when you walk into a store, what do you like or not like as far as how salespeople treat you? That'll get them thinking of specific instances. Oh, don't be too pushy. Don't follow me around thinking I'm gonna steal something. Just kidding. But don't follow me around when I don't need you. But then I want you to be there when I do finally have a question, right? So like then good little nuggets will come out when I put them in a different scenario, because they're thinking, I don't know anything about buying a house or selling a house yet. I don't know how to answer this. So then I put them in a situation where they do know. And sometimes I'll flip it to the negative. Okay, well, in what? So sorry, this is still all for number 3, expectations of me. If people are having trouble, if they're struggling answering it, then I have a couple of follow-up questions. And so one of the other follow-ups will be, well, what kinds of things will push your buttons? Again, if you think about any kind of salespeople, like what kinds of things will push your buttons? Usually they'll have some answers to that. So if they can't answer the big picture question, expectations of me, then I'll go through 2 or 3 other ways of asking. And I won't leave that question until they give me something. I want to find out what makes them tick, what's important to them.
How do you turn someone away if you realize that you guys may not be compatible for one another?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I'm usually not necessarily able to pick it up that early. However, when I go through when I set my expectations for them, okay, so let's say someone says the expectation is that I am available 24/7 and I need to show homes for 12 hours every Sunday, right? I mean, like, well, back when I was a solo agent, it was a balanced market. I actually was able to take Sundays off back then. So that's where I would tell them, well, Sunday's my only day off. So if you really need to get into a home, I always have a licensed agent who's covering for me. But if you really want it to be me, then this might not work. So I set my expectations back to, I explain to them what my boundaries are, what my expectations are, and if they don't budge, then it's like, okay, great. This is why we had this conversation up front, because I would rather us be disappointed right now in this conversation than for us to be disappointed later, right? Let me help find you an agent whose schedule is a better match. Yeah, good question. All right, and so Step 3 is think ahead. We want to anticipate what the other party intends to get out of the negotiation. So write down how you think they may counter the offer and how you plan to handle it. So especially in the beginning, those are things you might want to, kind of sketch out for yourself and just go through that process.
The idea of maybe going above asking, things like that.
Yeah, I think part of it's just role playing in your head and kind of anticipating what the other side will do. Which is, there's a thin line because you don't want it to be a limiting belief. I know the other side's going to react this way. Well, no, we don't know, right? Yeah. However, we can still think through, okay, we've had experiences where we asked for everything on the inspection report and the sellers got pissed. And then they didn't want to talk to us at all, after that. Other times, we've asked for everything on the inspection report and the seller said yes. Yeah. It shocked me. I was expecting you to say no, and you said yes. So as long as I tell the buyer that, all right, we can ask for everything. There's a couple of things that can come up. They're gonna, cross through and say no to a bunch of stuff. Let's figure out what they'll say yes to. The worst case scenario is that it really pisses them off and it really damages negotiations going forward. There's always a risk of that. If you don't like that risk, if we still really want this house, if you don't like that risk, then what we should do is go ahead and cross some things off ourselves. So I can go to the agent and say, we didn't ask for everything. Here are the things that are still really important to our buyer. Let's have a conversation about this, right? So that's part of the think ahead is thinking through the different scenarios. And then I also like to have a conversation about those scenarios with my buyer. And so
the strategy already.
Yeah. And I'm leading them to make the decision. So I'm not going to say, we can't ask for everything. We don't do that in this business. Well, no, actually you can, and I have gotten everything accepted, right? So I'm not going to say it in that way, which I've heard that. I mean, that was a real quote, right? I've heard agents say that. So I'm not going to be the one that says no to my client. I'm just going to explain both scenarios to them and then let them decide which risk they're, where do they want to fall on that? Are they really willing to risk pissing off the seller or not? And honestly, some sellers, you can ask them for 3 things and they're going to get pissed off. Yeah. So again, can't control that part of the outcome, right? All I can do is present it in the nicest manner possible and let the agent know that we're open. We're open for continuing to communicate about it. All right, so then with 4, set clear expectations. So prior to meeting with the other party, set clear and realistic expectations with your client. You just role played some of that. Under promise and over deliver. Stress the importance of moving quickly to create a sense of urgency. Part of setting clear expectations with your client is being clear that win-lose agreements are likely to be rejected by the other side. To set yourself up for success, make it a win-win. And so you've heard me say this a couple of times, I think, by now, but make sure you don't negotiate against your own client. So I never say no. I explain the outcomes and then let them choose their tactic. Mm-hmm. So number 5 is be informed. So before making an offer or counter offer, it's a good practice to speak with the other agents, ask open-ended questions, and use active listening to find out as much as you can about the other party and their agent. Do you know what active listening is? For real?
Mm-hmm. Just listening, being alert.
Yes. There is also, see first to understand. It's a great word for CTTs. There's something specific about active listening too, where you repeat back what they've said. You don't create your own wording around it. You repeat the exact words that they said back to them. That is where people feel the most heard. Now you can repeat back their words and then say, I think what I heard you say, and now you can use your own words to make sure that you have that understanding. So there's 2 different ways. So that's a slightly different skill or way of communicating. So I think what I heard you say is, and now you can read it now you can repeat it back in your own words, and then they get to correct you. That gives them a chance to, well, that's not exactly what I meant. What I meant is this, right? And so that is a helpful way to make sure that you truly understand. And so that is where, you don't jump to conclusions. Have you heard the phrase 3 deep? Has Ignite used that elsewhere, going 3 deep? When you're doing what did you call your buyer call?
Discovery call.
Discovery call. When you're doing your discovery call or conversation, there may be things like you're asking, your buyer what their deal breakers are, with buying a home. They're like, oh, I need to have a big yard. Well, each one of us is going to picture something different when you say big yard.
Yeah.
If they're coming from an apartment, they just mean any yard, right? And so 3 deep means you don't always have to go 3, but at least 1 or 2 or 3 questions deeper. Oh, great. What does big yard mean to you? Can you describe that a little better? What do you plan on doing in your yard? So does this need to be cleared because they're going to be playing a bunch of yard games? Do they like trees because it has shade? You get a little more details about how they're using that space. So is 10 feet by 10 feet row house in the city totally fine? They just need it to be fenced so they can let their little dog out, or do they need football field size to play? So that's one more little nugget for going 3 deep to get clarity. So when an agent or a client gives you details, you don't rely on the picture in your head. You ask them that follow-up 1, 2, or 3 questions to get clarity on what they need. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So another question. So I have one client. They're in Charlottesville, and they want to move into Richmond, but they're the mother-in-law and her son and daughter-in-law, and they asked me they want a big house with a big yard with 2 kitchens, which is, and I said, it's very rare to find 2 kitchens in one house, unless if they have a basement. Even with the basement, it's not necessarily to find a kitchen in the basement. So they said, well, this is what we want. We can build a kitchen in the basement. I said, maybe, but when I talked to them, like, do not expect to find a house with the 2 kitchens unless you build one, and you have to go through the county. Is that right what I said? Or they changed their mind for 2 houses with minimum 300.
So instead of me telling them things, I would ask 3 more questions. Wow. What's important to you about the 2 kitchens? Are you willing to build out a kitchen yourself? And if you are, what kind of space is needed for that? Does it need to be an in-law wing? Does it need to be a basement wing? Can you have a kitchen up on the 3rd? So it's like, I would ask a ton more questions. Yeah.
They want to separate. They want to separate the 2 families. They want 2 families to live in the same house, but different. Like
how many years are you willing to wait for this perfect home to come on the market?
They're ready. Well, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Then you get to decide if you want to work with them for that long or not, right? Like I'm not going to tell them anything. It's the house either exists or it doesn't, and they can spend as long as they want looking for it. But if we want to be creative, then okay, I'm going to look for, we want a walkout basement where you can add a kitchenette downstairs. Here are the counties you're looking at. Go ahead and call the counties to find out what the zoning rules are and how much of a kitchen can you build out. Because some of them, you can have a dishwasher and a fridge, but you can't have a stove, right? You might have a hot pad or something like that. So how much of a kitchen do they need? And what are the zoning rules in the different areas?
And if they're willing to, you can kind of switch up a little bit about what they're looking for. You can do a duplex. Yeah. From 2 completely different living spaces. They're fully kitted out with a full kitchen. I know
the duplex is a great idea here in my years living here, and out on the Northern Neck, we'd be looking at a property with a guest house. Yeah, something like that.
All right, so number 6 is obey the laws. So every state and locality have their own set of laws that regulate zoning, mortgage qualifications, other real estate matters. So stay current on your local regulations and stay out of court. Just like how to put that in here. And then know the documents inside and out. Become familiar with your local board of realtors governing forms. Take the time needed to understand the templates and what belongs in each field. So which documents are most important to know? Which ones are you already aware of? Purchase agreement, yeah, good answer. Disclosures, yeah.
Bill of sale.
I've 16 years, I've never used one, but you could. What else is important?
Any type of disclosure.
Yep.
As is addendums.
Yeah.
Buyer broker.
Buyer broker, great. What else?
Inspection.
Inspection. Yep. Inspection.
Yeah.
I also have, and this is where I want you guys to write these down. So you should be writing down everything that your peers have been saying. I'm going to give you a list. I want you to write these down. I want you to find them. Is it transaction desk? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I want you to find them in transaction desk. I want you to save them. I want you to print them. And until you know them forwards and backwards, so if you want a binder, if you want a folder on your desk, I want you to see it in writing. I want you to practice filling it out online. But you should be doing these over and over again as a newer agent. So of course the purchase agreement is an obvious one. And I know there's multiple classes that review that. Possession agreement for seller and buyer.
As far as like them running back a couple of months?
Yeah.
Okay.
The buyer is more rare right now. That's if a buyer moves in early. You don't see that quite as often in this market. However, it's still good to go ahead and get familiar with it. The as-is addendum, I want you to highlight which clauses in the contract is removing, right? And then go look at the contract and cross those off so you can get that visual. The escalation clause addendum. The inspection, repairs, and credit addendum. I actually don't like the CBER MLS one. I have my own clause that I write, but that one is most commonly used. So you need to know it really well because it's going to be, it'll be presented to you as a listing agent, regardless of what you use as a buyer's agent. And then I believe the office has put together additional clauses. So make sure you have that document printed out and just like reread those over and over again so that you have that memory of what already exists for when situations come up. So that's where you may waive a certain amount of the appraisal. You might not waive the complete appraisal, but you may waive a certain amount. Maybe you're waiving a certain amount of the inspection. So all of those general clauses should have been provided by the office broker. So make sure you get your hands on those clauses and learn those because you need to know where to find it really quickly when you're writing an offer or negotiating.
Catherine, and I think Michael Putman had pointed me to this several months ago. VAR has a standard clause booklet.
Okay.
And you can access it through their site. And if there's not a form and addendum already there, you copy paste and you've gotten that from an appropriate source.
Absolutely. So yeah, so we should have broker approved clauses here. VAR is a good source, but VAR's clauses aren't going to reference our CBR MLS contracts. So you always have to double check their clauses because if they're referencing the VAR purchase agreement or listing agreement, they're going to say a certain clause number. Yeah, that's not going to match because we prefer everyone in the Richmond area, other than one office, prefers the CBR MLS forms. So you'll just double check those things, but at least it can give you good legal wording to, kind of borrow from. Hi.
Where can I find the because if you type it, it brings out shared spaces. So the other two forms that you have to fill out. So where exactly what would be?
If Patrice or Robbie pop back in, we'll double check with them.
Okay.
I've seen it posted before, but
if you go to the transaction desk, literally, so when it's sent, it's giving you the whole list before you've actually scanned it back to an actual form. You scroll all the way down to the bottom, the whole thing is all color links. And they're all. And one thing that I did to just kind of throw that out there, when I would have an issue with like reading an actual clause or statement in one of our contracts, and I didn't know legally what it was saying or what my options were. John from Vesta, fantastic. You literally just send him the clause, be like, am I understanding this correctly? Is this what this says? And he'll be like, yep, or no, you're a little off, it's really saying that. I just thought that was super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was making stuff up, and I was like a lawyer, and I wasn't, so I had to double check with him. He's really good with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Establish a strong relationship with your closing attorney from early on. And there are a lot of times where we've had to get creative, and I've had to create my own clauses. And the best practice is to run it by a broker, run it by an attorney, and get that approval. So you have that paper trail, right? So if something goes south later, you can show that anything you put together had been approved. It came from, another source. So that's really, really good best practices.
And I was gonna say, I agree with the clauses, because it's like you want to make sure you use the right terminologies to fit the contract. You know, like you don't want to just say.
And I said things that I thought was very good, and then I sent it over, and then it came back. Obviously, it was not clear, and now we're going back and forth on the phone. And if I would have taken that step to double check with John before I really needed to, it would have been a non-factor, non-issue. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's also times where I'll default, especially in this market where it's a seller's market, I'll default to the listing agent, where I'll say, hey, this is typically how I write up this, this clause. How do you and your broker, prefer it? And so I'm a lot more like giving in this kind of market when I'm a buyer's agent, right? So it's like the listing agent prefers, a flat amount or a full amount. Like I'm gonna call them to say, hey, my buyers want to waive money, for the home inspection. Do you prefer it to be individual items under a set amount, or do you prefer that we just waive, $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, right? Like I'm gonna default to the listing agent in this market. I had a strong opinion on it a couple of years ago. I dropped all my strong opinions when it became, a seller's market. So then it's just, you learn that listing agents they have their opinions. They think one way is better than the other. And part of it's because of their own experiences where, it worked out better for a seller here and it hurt a seller over there. So that's where, asking some of those specific questions and giving them options on the clauses and stuff too. All right, so now if you turn to the purposeful questions in your participant guide, ask purposeful questions. So understanding the right questions to ask is important to the negotiation process and being able to prepare in the most comprehensive way. As you gain information, you will strengthen your ability to negotiate and increase your chances of having a win-win negotiation. So benefits of asking questions is that it provides you with the points you will negotiate on, provides you insight on where you and your client will have leverage, sets clear expectations, allows you to get to know your client and their goal, helps you learn what will make it a win-win negotiation for both parties. So I feel like we've covered that a lot. So at a basic level, there are two types of questions: open-ended and closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that have unlimited response options. What additional information should I know? What is important about closing in 30 days? How do you feel about that? Close-ended questions have a specific response. Often it's just yes or no. Do you have to sell your home by a specific date? Do you have any other offers? What is the bottom line price you will consider? So why might it be more beneficial to use open-ended questions as you're preparing for a negotiation?
It gives them time for us to listen, for them to just give you basically all the information you need to know. It's not a yes or no. It's kind of like, just talk to me. Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right. Guess I'm giving you more information, right?
Makes them feel like you're on their side.
One tip is I will often start with a close-ended question and then go through deep with open-ended questions. So my first question may be, in a perfect world, when would you like to be moving into your new home? That's a close-ended question, right? but then they're gonna give me a date, and then I'm gonna ask the open-ended questions. What's important to you about that timing? What's happening between now and then? What happens if you don't get a home by that date, right? So yeah, so they both can be, it's not that one set of questions is bad. Oftentimes my checklist of questions, I'm gonna start with that close-ended and then go deeper with the open-ended. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So let's dig into some specific questions that can help you learn about your client's needs and create a focus for negotiation. So 2 options can be, what would happen if? That helps you anticipate, next steps. And then why is this important to you? That's how you can gain more information and insight, into the previous question. So let's see how this works in a real world setting with a quick role play. So I will play the agent. Can I get someone to role play the client? Me. All right. Jamia. All right. So
be touching me.
All right, so Jamia, let's pretend you're my buyer.
Okay.
So what would happen if the seller can't give you a 30-day closing like you're requesting?
We're not closing. This happened, we're not closing. I need to be out this house within 30 days. My rent is gonna go up on the 2nd. We have to close within 30 days, no exception.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that it's important to you to get out before your lease is up. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. They're going to go up $500 on the 2nd. I don't have it. If you don't close in 30 days, the seller's going to have to pay that $500.
Okay.
You add that in the contract?
Your lease is up. So not only will you not have a place to live, but it's also going to cost you more, or it's going to cost you more money if you keep the place to live.
Correct. Yeah, my landlord is not. My best friend was here. He's going to go up $500 on my rent.
So that's $500 that you could either put towards the new house you're trying to purchase, or you've got to suck it up and pay to stay in the place you're at.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's good to understand it. Yeah, I'm not going to solve that in this conversation, right? But it's about finding the information. So also now when I'm talking to a listing agent, and be like, all right, here's the deal. Yeah. Like we would like to. This is $500 that we can use towards the purchase of the home versus that, we need it for rent if we stay, right? So it just helps. It's information I could bring to other side.
Yeah. 30 days standard.
Anywhere between 30 to 60 days is very typical.
Okay.
I've closed something as quickly as 6 days. Good. Taken 6 months. That was a short sale. Those might come back. I don't know.
Never are.
So yeah, 30 to 60 is your typical time frame where the back office systems for a lender are set up for to be a little more smooth. If you're, that 45-day mark tends to be like the least stress. That also you've got in a balanced market, we used to have 14 days to do inspections. So 30 can sometimes feel a little fast because you're like coming right behind, inspection stuff. Because normally you go through inspections, you might have another week of negotiations. Now you're 21 days in. You normally don't order the appraisal until you know for sure you're staying in a deal. I know the contract says 60 days, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
It just gives them the ability to break it if they want to.
I came into this business like obviously 1 year ago, so it's still fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that I'm doing the contract and be closing in 68 days, I don't like, what do you do after the inspection? What do you do after the appraisal? Like, what's next? Do you just sit and then you just still contact?
Yep. You just do 1 week check-in call saying, hey, there's nothing for us to do this week. I'm just letting you know that I'm looking at your file and everything's looking good. I talked to the lender, I talked to the title company. We're good to go. I'll call you next week.
Okay.
So yeah, you keep them off your back by telling you always tell them what's next.
Okay.
This is an awesome little scripting thing. Is every time you're having a conversation with the client, you tell them what's next.
Okay.
It helps keep them quiet in between.
Got it.
And you prepare them that there's going to be that quiet time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're gonna do this, and it's gonna be a little quiet. I'll check in, and then it's pick up again towards right before closing.
Yeah, so I tell them we talk a lot in the first week and we talk a lot in that last week. And we don't have to talk as much in the middle, but I'm still gonna give you a quick call, email, or text every single week. And of course, reach out to me if you have questions in between. But I'm gonna try not to bug you unless I have something that you need to do.
I think no reminders as well, like, hey, especially with buyers when it comes to money, and I know they're gonna be talking to their lenders too. But it's like, hey, remember, you know, I know it's the holidays, somebody might wanna give you some money or something, just in a small amount here and there, because when it does get quiet, they get excited, comfortable, but keep it in your cart, don't buy nothing, you know, just window shop for like that. Things like that to make sure that we're gonna continue this good closing that we're planning for.
And I cover that in the buyer consultation. I used to have a page specifically about that in my buyer packet that says, do not max out your credit cards, do not make big purchases, do not quit your job, don't make any of these big changes until from this point, until we close on that home. And it is a good reminder, especially if you're dealing with first-time buyers, to remind them again when we get under contract. Here's a reminder, don't make any financial changes because the lender has approved you by how you look today. So don't change any of that between now and then. If you need to go make a big purchase, you run it by them first. So I've had clients call them and be like, I want to put a $600 couch on my credit card. Can I do that? Lender said, you're totally fine. Your ratios are okay. But I'd much rather than ask all those little questions than screw something up. Jamia, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did have I think I said I had a question on my, I did have a question. So when it comes to the portion we were talking about, like letting them know, right? What would be the appropriate time? Because you don't want to overly give information. Like you kind of let them know a week before that, that important process, or do you let them know the day before? Like, setting the expectation.
Good question. So I've got kind of like three different buckets where I spend the most time giving information to my buyer. The first is in that exploratory call. I call it, lead intake or buyer intake. Then I schedule a buyer consultation. My buyer consultations are minimum 60 minutes. I've sat down with some of my engineer guy folks, and those have been 3 hours.
Yes.
Right? So I've got my buyer packet, and I'm walking through the flow chart of all the steps between now and closing. And I'm going through the 10-page contract, the purchase agreement. I am reviewing that purchase agreement with them during the buyer consultation. After Ignite, I'll do 2 more like off Ignite little bonus classes, and one of them will be my buyer consultation.
I was in your last year.
What'd you say?
I was in your last year.
Cool. Yeah. And I think what I'll do is do one class just on lead intake, the needs analysis part of it. I think I'll do just one on that. And then I'll do a second class with the buyer consultation so we can do them back to back so you can see that whole process. Then I created a really detailed next steps email. So as soon as that buyer goes under contract, I'm giving them the whole outline. I've got the template written. Now every deal is a little different. So I still have to go in and change a couple of the details, like do we have this term or don't have this term? So that next steps email in a perfect world goes to them within 24 hours of them being under contract. Now, of course, I'm on a team and our transaction coordinator does that. So that is where I'm outlining everything for them. When it was the balanced market and there was a little more time between, I would resend that next steps email to them every week. So then on Monday, it'd be like, all the headers would be complete coming up next. Right. And so that I would just resend every week. And that also helps, we attract like-minded people. So I get a lot of annoyingly detailed million question folks, right? So I created systems to help with their personalities. It also helped me keep everything straight too, right? And so that was my way of updating. I'm like, okay, all these things are checked off. Here's the thing because people need to know what they're supposed to be worried about. Yeah. Or they just worrying about worrying, right? And so I'm telling them, here's what's next. And also you don't have to worry about it because we're doing all this for you, right? It's all under control. So that was my way of, managing some of those things. So that's where the bulk of the information we get in their contract is doing that next steps email. Some of my folks, I'm gonna also get on the phone and walk them through the email. The email's not always enough for everyone, right? And those first couple of days of getting under contract is when a lot is happening. And then after that, you know, you kind of peel off. Did I answer your question there?
No, yeah, you did.
Okay, cool. So turn to prepare scenario page in your participant guide. So this is where you get to work with a partner. So I think most of you, maybe the two of you can join up. Anthony, work with Amber, AJ, and then the two of you, they're sitting. Okay. So if everyone can pair up, you're going to read the scenario, and then together you're going to list clarifying questions you could ask your client. So keep in mind everything you just learned about open and closed questions. Work with your partner and list out all of your clarifying questions. Everyone find the page in the booklet? Everyone's got their perfect. So I'm gonna give you like, I'm gonna give you 3 minutes to do as many questions as possible.
So they were requesting.
You all have everything you need, you know where we are online.
So 3 offers were made to all of the carpeting, obviously, is $1 couple grand maybe. So those are just stipulations. So buyer agent. They're pre-approved. And they have to close in the shortest time possible since they're moving from out of state to need instead of all of the questions.
That's one thing to see.
So obviously, they're just having an offering for the client to get it. And they'd like to get all the appliances. And the buyers are requesting leaving all the appliances.
Yeah. So I'll just make sure that's
So
I want to actually.
No, they're feeling back. You always feel. You know, there's some play, but yeah, this is still great. You know, I love teaching through questions.
that's tough because obviously they have a lot going on, so they just want to go to work. Moving until they said that.
Like deeper into that after. All right, yeah, let's that does the whole. Let's look at doing that for November. Okay.
You know, the other thing, I'm gonna get the sheet and make sure I add those people. Yeah, hold on, let me go for it.
Oh, yeah.
So as buyers, we could say, we could put
Yeah, compared to ours.
10 more
Yeah, they
grand
should have.
or 5 more grand.
They should, well, you can look it up. Like this page is not right. So that's something I'll have to do next time. It's all I need to get the and then write that down here.
Yeah.
Stipulate, but you have
We
to
can,
leave it.
yeah, I've got it in my office.
So,
Yeah.
so you come out.
Like if I teach this again, what it would be awesome if I just teach this every day.
Yeah, remember, train the presenter says that, learn one and keep teaching it. But yeah, I've got the participant book in my office, so if you want to borrow it, make your cross-reference.
That's like a stipulation.
Yeah, I didn't want to,
That would be.
you know. Oh, good. Tell you what page you're on.
30 seconds, y'all. Quickly write down as many questions as you can think of. Write down any clarifying questions. You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, feet went on there, yeah. Hey, and did you look up with that other post that you asked me about? Was that right? Okay, but thank you.
Yeah.
I got in. I think, because I saw him yesterday, and I can't remember if that's where he was sitting, but.
It's like an idea with the name in Facebook, then I can.
All right. Time. They said it allowed 10, but I only allowed 3. I was doing the bold version of it.
Yeah.
Go fast. All right. Who wants to share some of the clarifying questions they came up with? Anthony?
So we started with how important is cash on hand for you if you would have to potentially fix the roof. So just, I mean, saying she wanted to keep her monthly payment low, but you know, if we were to get the house, and there was potential fixing the roof, how important is cash on hand for that? And then if we were to write an offer for $155,000 and someone got it for $156,000, we would be okay with that. Kind of try to see like what their price would be. You know, say, hey, we put with an escalation clause, you know, if this house is really what they want. So trying to figure out that price point.
Who's got something different?
Ours is similar to that second one as far as the idea of trying to strategize the roof repair, but we also added in the fact that her focus is her monthly payment. The difference between 175 and 155 monthly is a small number. So it'd be one of those points of reaching out to you to crunch the numbers on what 175 looks like. And let's say it's $50 a month. Would you be willing to lose this house over $50 a month? And kind of putting it back on her and then giving her all the information to make an educated decision.
Okay.
Yeah, different scenario, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your questions? Questions are still good.
No, they were just.
All right, y'all listen up to each scenario.
We were just asking in our scenario, like, what would be more important to you, the appliances or the sales price? Because they were giving the appliances to their daughter, the listing agent. The sellers wanted to give the appliances to the daughter.
Yeah.
But the buyers wanted to actually include the appliances in their offer.
Right.
So we were kind of just back and forth with that, trying to figure out what was more important, the sales price, what you're asking for, or the appliances. So.
That's a good question.
I think we had a similar scenario, and ours is more so negotiating the time, because they wanted to do a 30-day close.
Okay.
So, you know, we just kind of was on the same page on the time. And also, I think the listing agent's client had to sell another home, before they can get into this. Well, the buyer's agent.
So what's one of the clarifying questions you came up with?
The appliances, that was that question here, like, you know, if they have those kids, so.
What's more important?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what's in there.
Okay, great. Anyone have a question that has not been shared yet? Okay, that's great. Cool. Good work. How did it feel? Do you feel like it came to you pretty naturally, or were you searching for it? Okay. All right, so now turn to present best practices page. So now that you understand the prepare stage, let's talk about the second stage, present. We'll go over some best practices to keep in mind when presenting to the co-op agent. Your participant guide has more detail that you can refer back to at any time also. So some of the best practices are, number one, call the other agent. Kind of obvious, right? I'll tell you, some are a lot harder to get a hold of than others. So if you call and you get their voicemail, immediately send a text message and then also send an email. If you're the buyer's agent, you do anything, it doesn't matter what your style is, it matters what the listing agent style is, right? So try doing a call, because I know sometimes you can just get more information if someone does pick up the phone. You've got a lot of different personalities in this business. You've got the high eye. Does Ignite do disc?
We will later on this, I think it's next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay. So the disc profiles, Ds are the drivers, Is are the super outgoing. Those tend to be the most prevalent personality profiles in real estate. You also have the S's, which like a lot of security and are more nurturing, and the C's are very detail oriented. They're the ones dotting the I's and crossing the T's on contracts. Usually have a little bit, of a mixture of them. On the sales end of things, the office staff tend to be higher in the S and the C, sometimes with high D or high I, right? But with real estate agents, you may have listing agents who are high D, high drivers. They do not want to talk to you on the phone. They want your questions, they want a bullet point, and they're going to respond to you in bullet points, right? The high I's, they're going to pick up the phone and you're going to try to ask a simple question, and they're going to keep you on it for 15 or 20 minutes. So it's just having the understanding of, an agent's not being a jerk by not calling you back, but just being themselves, which is a high driver, and you're a high I, so you're getting pissed that they're not calling you. So that is where, after you make that call, immediately send a text message to let them know. Don't send a text message to say, hey, can you call me?
Or I let your voicemail.
Or call me about such and such address. I'll be like, nope.
I say everything I say.
Yeah, you have not told me what you need, why you need it, whatever. I have no sense of urgency, and I'm not going to let your lack of information create sense of urgency for me. So when I've got my list of things to do and I'm trying to stay in my time blocks, there's no reason for me to do that, right? But if someone says, I'm writing an offer right now, I have a clarification question about this, and I can see that question wasn't covered in my FAQs or, remarks, I'll be like, oh gosh, this person does need to hear from me, as soon as I can. If I'm in a meeting, of course I can't. But so as a buyer's agent, give me enough information to know why I need to call you back, because I am the high D, and so I'm going to purposely not call you back.
And I'm like,
if you give me one of those annoying texts, call me. Like, no, I don't follow your demands. So anyway, those are just the really simple tips. I think they're simple. Not enough people do it, which is why I'm telling you multiple times.
What if you did all of that, you still didn't get a response?
You do the best you can at that point. That's where I'm looking. Is there anyone else who works with our agent? Are there 2 listing agents listed? I'll go through everyone. And it's I would say, don't bother them again an hour later. Like, my phone is off the 3 hours I've been here teaching you guys, right? But if you reach out to someone in the morning and then it's like 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock and you still don't hear back from them, you can send a quick text message and just say, hey, I'm just sending you a quick follow-up text message just to make sure this didn't get buried, in your busy day. And just be super polite, and you can follow up again. But sometimes you just got to get the job done without getting the additional information. Some agents roll like that. They're just like, they're a couple super transactional agents who they do not communicate with buyer's agents at all. So every now and then you'll come across that. So they feel like the information you need is there. They want to see the offer from you first, and then they'll react to you. So everyone plays it a little bit different.
What happens if you see
it's not right or wrong?
Yeah,
just
like
different.
The sign on a house has like an agent's name and their phone number, and then MLS has a complete different agent name and their phone number. Say they're the listing agent, and so you calling the person on MLS, and then you go to the house and you see a whole nother picture, it was so weird.
Oh yeah, so you'll see that with our team a lot.
Okay.
Because what we do, so I'm a listing agent. I don't work directly with buyers anymore.
Okay.
So the buyer's agent's name will go on the sign.
Got it.
So whichever agent volunteers to do the open house, they get their name on the sign. Because all leads coming off the sign, all leads coming from the open house go to the agent who's doing the
So
open
who
house.
should she contact in that moment? The person
Oh.
design?
Pay attention to MLS.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that buyer's agent's there for buyer leads. They don't want to talk to you.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
No
we
money.
will.
They will. Everyone on our team will. But yeah, you want to contact the listing agent directly. And like my listings will actually say during work hours, contact Jessica.
Okay,
And then contact Catherine.
gotcha.
So if you want the quickest answers, you go to Jessica Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, sometimes outside of that. 'Cause she's the one in the office right now, right? Like I'm often in appointments that take 2 or 3 hours with my phone off.
Okay.
So yeah.
I was just like, oh, I just don't know this company.
Yeah, so that's part of it. I mean, legally, we have to have Keller Williams information on the sign.
Okay.
And then, and like all of our listings have John Pace as a co-listing. So our signs are legal, but yeah, in the MLS, you'll get my information. If you're just driving by something, then whatever number you call, they're trying to get the lead. When they figure out it's an agent with a question, they'll pass it off to Jessica. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses and voice qualities. So that's where you're listening to your intuition, when you are in a conversation with an agent. Keep quiet once you present an offer. We're usually not presenting something verbally. Sometimes we are when it comes to negotiations. If you are presenting something to them, that's where if they're quiet, especially high eyes, they're going to want to fill that void to keep talking. And what you can do is you might erode what you were just trying to negotiate, right? By offering too much information. So when you do state something, be quiet. Allow the silence to do the heavy lifting. Let them respond. It's important to do with our clients too.
Yes.
Create the space. Some of them process internally. Give them a chance to respond. Keep quiet. Oh, sorry.
And try not to talk fast. I know I've gotten in a back and forth with another agent, and I was fine. And because we were going to close the thing regardless, just a small thing.
Yeah.
But she went from, hey, Felicia, normal pace to rocket speed. And to me, it was like, you're losing yourself right now. Like you're very emotional. And in that emotion, she started saying things that she really shouldn't have said. That actually made my position a lot stronger.
Yeah.
And we were able to negotiate some things that she blurted out because she was really agitated and speaking too fast and thinking too slow.
Yeah. Yeah, got into the burn. Yeah. So number 4, listen carefully to what is important to the other party. We've already talked about asking a lot of good questions for that too, right? Stay calm and relaxed. That goes to what you were just saying. So as they get emotional, you got to learn to dial it down. I'm not going to match them. Every now and then it's okay to match. Really short, really quick.
As far as just explaining or demonstrating that you're solid, like I'm not being moved by your theatrics.
Every now and then you will come across an agent or a client and an attorney where I will suddenly yell at them because of what they're doing. And then I immediately bring it back down because they needed that to like jar them out of whatever they're doing. And also to show them that like, oh no, I can fight you. But I'm not going to.
Yeah. Right.
But I can't.
I will check you and bring you right back.
Yeah, exactly. But that I don't recommend starting with that. And I don't recommend doing that early in your career. That's something that you kind of learn over time of when do I need to show, like when is it actually going to be to my benefit to do this, and then get control of the conversation again.
Yeah, like I'm in the very beginning of my career, right? So the transaction that we just closed on, that listing agent was like a bully. And usually I am a firecracker, right? However, this is the first transaction. I was like, yeah, I understand. And the whole time I'm like, I can't believe I'm being punked like this. But but like, I'm just being transparent. Like, I'm so new. And I was like, can I even talk back right now? Like, I don't know.
No, that was so good of you not to. And that was actually, that's really strong emotional intelligence to be able to rein that in when your natural instinct is to, so that's going to be that's always going to be the right way to do it.
Okay.
Just to not engage in that way. Okay. And some of us took many years to learn that and get there. You don't want to match fire for fire in those situations. You also don't want to be bullied. And so there is a way to, kind of weave and bob through that. And that's where language of sales is so powerful, because you don't get pulled into, what they're
talking about.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. Do certain listing agents do their research on agents that submit an offer? So for example, with me, when I submitted an offer, I was talking to the agent, and I didn't even say much, but he was just like, I can tell, and I'm like, how could you tell, so I wasn't sure. He maybe did some research on my end.
What did he say? He could tell what? That you were a great agent or that you were a new agent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It might have been a conversation.
Yeah. And I asked him to do anything. I just was like, kind of letting him steer it. But he knew because I was new, because I don't know, maybe I just let him steer, but I ain't let him get control.
Yeah. I think there's not enough information there for me to have good insight on that. Sometimes we can tell agents are new because they're asking us questions that clearly they haven't been trained on it yet, or they don't even know. It's like in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And there's questions that you're asking a listing agent that you really should have been asking your broker first, or Patrice.
Or they've already been laid out and they're already met.
That, or you're giving me information in your question that hurts your client.
Oh.
Yeah. So that is where, there's certain things, that's where you want to come to every class that you can and do these practice, do all the extra practice sessions and all that stuff to don't get in that
Give us an example of a question that hurt our client. If it's just a question.
I've said before, well, we could go a little bit higher if that's what's going to close the deal. So that's what happened. We went a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Like there was stupid bullshit.
Thank you for letting me know that. We will take the higher number.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think listings agents can lie when they call you back and say that you're neck and neck with someone else? How high do you want to go?
It's all tech. Yeah, because I had one.
We might be going off topic. Will you write that question down? This is a fun conversation.
Yes.
Anyone who wants to stay at the end of class, that'll be a good one to circle back to. And I think that's something we can go deeper into my boot camp after Ignite also, for anyone who can't stay. All right, so stay calm, relax, focus on the customer's needs. Oh, so focus on the customer's needs. That also kind of ties into some of the scenarios that Brittany was bringing up too, right? Like when we just want to fight the other side because they're being such jerks. Well, am I doing what's best for my client?
Yeah.
Right? Even though I'm right, and I know this other person's wrong, and I know they're punking me right now, and I could totally put them in their place, and I could debate them so fast. But does that get us what we want at the end of the day? Right? And so that's where it's like filter out all those thoughts that you're having, because the focus is on what we want out of the transaction, right? And all of that, of course, ties into give your offer the best chance. I have a number 8, so write this in your booklet. Number 8, because this is the present stage, right? Number 8 is include highlights in your email.
Oh, yeah.
When you are presenting an offer, so when you're the buyer's agent, presenting an offer to a listing agent, include highlights in your email and include all offer docs in one single PDF if you can.
Why? I would think, to me, I'd rather you separate them, then it makes it easier for me to upload them.
So in this current market, where we've been receiving 5, 10, 15, 25 offers, we are saving them all in a file, offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, offer 4.
Yeah.
So if offer 1 is 7 different documents and offer 3 is, all separated, we're having to create the PDF. So I've got a team of people, so it's fine. I'm not doing it. But for an individual, if you're presenting to an individual agent, that I've learned is much easier for that side. Yeah. So one PDF, it's only one document they have to download. It's only one document they're sending to their client. Now I've got the capability, if you put in a bunch of extraneous, well, that's another thing too. Your buyer agency agreement all of the agreements that have nothing to do with the seller, take those out. That's my personal preference. If you want to be the best agent possible, take those out. Now, as a listing agent, I can delete those before I send them over to my seller. It's not a huge deal, but it's still one more little thing. If you've got a high detailed listing agent, they're noticing all these things, you know, from the stuff that you're sending over. Also, you should be getting the buyer agency agreement signed at the buyer consultation. Oh, okay, we're at time, so I've got to, oh man. When I was practicing this, I didn't realize how much client or participation there would be, so I'm way off track.
So what you need to do, and we'll take a break, and the next section, I'll just shorten each part a little bit.
Okay.
Because this is important. It's all important.
All right, so with now that we've covered the first two pieces of the three-piece approach, the third P, of course, is position. So positioning is about moving both parties closer until there's total agreement. So when you're engaged in this third step, you will acknowledge and affirm common ground. You're looking for places where the buyer and seller are in agreement. This also helps uncover the areas that can be adjusted versus the ones that are set in stone. You can use what and how questions. These specific types of questions help you better understand the priorities on the other side of the table. Your participant guide has some more details on using what and how questions. So if you want to earmark that page for quick reference. Understand this is a process. Sometimes you will have to go back and forth multiple times to come to an agreement. So this is where I've also made a note. Remember and make this crystal clear to your clients in Virginia. Any change to a contract is considered a counter offer. Even if you're going in and correcting a name or adding an initial or changing a date, any change is considered a counter offer and all previous offers are now void. In the purchase agreement, all changes must be initialed by all parties, and it all must be sent back prior to the deadline, which is on page 9, I think, 9 or 10, in order to be ratified. So if the deadline is 5 p.m., both parties have agreed to it, everyone's had verbal agreement, but you don't return the contract until 7 p.m., it's actually not legally ratified. So that deadline matters. All initials and signatures have to happen, and it has to be delivered by the deadline. Delivered as in email, right? So even if the signing, the signature or the initial might have a timestamp that was in time, but the delivery is what matters. And here's where it really, really matters. Your client signed it, it's sitting in your inbox. I'm the listing agent. I get another offer in and it's better. My seller goes, oh my God, I don't care that we verbally accepted this one. This offer is better. I want it. I immediately go back to that, to buyer agent number 1 and then say, we're rescinding this, this offer or a counter or whatever it is, like offer rescinded, and we can move forward with this other offer. So until you have delivered it, it is not ratified. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not great when it happens, but I'm legally obligated to present it to my seller, and my seller has no legal obligation to you until you're ratified.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel good, but it's the right thing. You know, it is what it is. It's those things come up. They have happened in real life. Yes.
In that exact scenario, if I was the very now sad first agent, if you said, okay, I've gotten an offer from Lex, we're going to go with this one, would you give me the opportunity to up my offer? Would you tell me, hey, this one came in at this number, can you beat it? Would you?
Potentially, yeah, it's all very different scenarios. So let's say the offer that comes in is all cash and I know your mortgage.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Right? You know, yeah. There may not be a valid reason, you know, to otherwise be like, oh, we got multiple offers, highest the best.
Yeah.
And we say your offer is now void, we're applying for highest the best. We'll give everyone 2 hours to resubmit or something like that. Like something like that could happen. But yeah, it doesn't matter. There's some old school agents who'll be like, yeah, everything's fine, verbal, you know. But the thing is, legally, there is no obligation until once you're ratified, no one can kick you out. So I just like to emphasize that. Remember, The Y4C2Ts, no one to walk away. So with the Y4C2Ts, no one to walk away from the deal if it's not going to be a win-win without damaging relationships in the process. And so that's where, again, like it may be getting frustrated with some of those negotiations. I try to leave it as nice as possible and just say, hey, I get it. The sellers are where they are right now. My buyers are, kind of stuck on this number. Let's give it a couple of weeks. If you're still on the market, we'll see if anything's different with the sellers. I'll see if anything's different with my buyers. Maybe we can talk again in the future. So I'm making it clear, like, we're not accepting your last counter. We are walking away, but then I'm also leaving that door open to say, hey, let's see if either side changes in a couple of weeks. If they haven't sold, maybe they'll be singing a different tune. But that's when I know my buyer is walking, right? Like at this point, they're done. The negotiations aren't happening, because you don't want to throw that out there if the buyers still want to negotiate, because then someone can call your bluff, right?
Yes.
All right, so turn to positions, the position scenario page in your discussion guide. So this is where you have you working with a partner on another scenario on how you can create a win-win. And you think we can do this in 3 minutes?
Yep.
All right.
How did you create a win-win?
So read your scenario to walk through that role play. And what you're looking for is how to create a win-win. So 3 minutes and then we'll shout out answers. Oh, you did the wrong one?
Yeah, we did the wrong one.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, now you answered a different question. At least you've already read it. That'll make it easier to do in 3 minutes.
All right.
So how do we create a win-win?
Maybe that's why we're confused.
Yeah. It still seemed to make sense. Yeah.
So how do we create a win-win scenario? Very nice scenario.
Okay, they want to keep everything.
So if they were right in a well-established neighborhood, the house is still required new parking throughout the first floor and a new front door. Like I said, that's like another 3 or 4 minutes, right? For carpets, installation, and the materials.
What'd you say?
So
I thought I could read this.
3 offers have been made
yeah.
for all of their asking price.
Somebody who didn't get the link from last
Yeah, okay, so you have good hearing? So write down what you just said, and then we'll have another approach to it as well. All the
Okay, so so they're selling, they're buying, asking the asking price, competition, and because the buyers are leaving their lives in the current homes, they want to be honest in the home.
So just
The list of
take care of-
sellers, like, we're not,
Yes, correct. Or another position would be for 350, the buyer will use that extra 10 grand to fix the carpeting and the new garage door, but in stipulation, you have to leave the apartment. So in order to reach their asking price, which is 350, we would repair the carpet, so they get that on, get that on their arsenal. We'll take care of this, but you have to leave the apartment. You know what I'm saying? So
50 seconds.
yeah, okay. Wait, it is as is. But I'm sure, yeah. In my head, I'm like, we'll give you the extra money if you guys take care of the carpet and the, if you take care of the floor and the new garage door.
And then they can keep the time.
weekend.
Also,
Yeah.
All right, 10 seconds. Get ready to wrap up.
But who the hell wants to buy new appliances? That's a lot of money.
All right, time.
They're on the great big list.
Most new construction homes, yeah. Yeah,
All right, 1, 2, 3.
yeah. If people want to take it, whether like a
I
new
love
refrigerator.
all right,
Exactly.
who wants to share? How did you create a win-win situation in your scenario? AJ?
So I would like, if I am the buyer agent, I will encourage the buyer to go higher, the same price or higher to ask for the appliance. Because they want to give the appliance to their daughter. They don't want to keep it.
Gotcha.
So I would go higher price, higher than $350 actually.
Yeah.
To try to make them, keep the appliance and maybe they.
So they're mortgaging it in, so they don't have to use their cash. The sellers get more money, so now they can buy their daughter. So everyone gets what they need at the end. Great. Anyone come up with something different?
Our idea was more the idea of the 3D, or basically kind of been throwing it back on them. So they're we love the house. So the only things that we're negotiating is how quick the close time, the appliances, the cost. So out of those 3 things, what's the most important to you? And then based on whatever they pick, then we negotiate based on that. If it's cost, then we're gonna go at $340 and we're gonna get over the appliances.
Yeah.
If it's time, whatever it is, and then just customize the negotiation based on what's important to them.
Okay, great. Anyone else take a different angle?
I would say ours was more similar, but it was kind of different, because of course she was giving pushback as the listing agent.
Yeah.
She wanted a certain amount, so I just was kind of being strategic, she couldn't guarantee that we can do this 30 days for sure. So I was just trying to add another clause or maybe another addendum, like if we do extend 30 days, we would have to bring the price down. And then I was more clear with the appliances.
Oh.
She didn't say yes or no because you said hands up.
I like the creativity.
In the end, it says that they're ready to stand their ground regarding the price. They want to, that can put in a situation.
So I don't know if all of you online heard that Jamia came up with a great win-win creative strategy that said, hey, if you can close in 30 days, we'll give you the price you want. And we're going to create a clause that says if closing gets pushed back, if closing is pushed beyond those 30 days, then the price goes down. So the seller gets a reward for closing quickly, buyer gets a reward, for it taking longer. So I love that creativity. You don't get a lot of that in this current market, but in a balanced market or a buyer's market, absolutely. There's all kinds of things we made up in the buyer's market. I got fences built. I got all kinds of things.
What about the appliances stuff? Any decision on appliances?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they didn't show us that out. All right. Another check-in for ahas. Have you guys had what ahas have you had in this last section?
Position agreement, because the seller says here they don't want to move until the house sold, right? Maybe they want to extend.
Okay, sorry. Stepping away from that exercise, ahas for this whole section. Any ahas from today's class?
I was doing, 3D when I was asking why do you want 2 bedrooms when it's just you, or what, I wasn't doing that on objections or, things that were actually important in the negotiation. I had a tendency to kind of, well, you told me that you wanted to, and just kind of keep pushing that point, but now it makes.
So you're realizing, so that's your aha for yourself is you can employ going 3D more when you're hit with objections instead of trying to handle it from the get-go.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a huge aha. Great.
I think I'm too much of the win-win side, and the reason I say it's too much of it is because it's like, oh, you want to give that to your daughter? Okay, well, how can we really help you? Like, I think I'm thinking too deep. Like, although I'm the buyer, representing the buyer, I really want you to be happy, and I really want them to be happy too.
Absolutely. So that's a wonderful place for your heart to be in.
Yeah.
And your fiduciary duty is to your buyer.
Yeah.
And if the sellers really won't, so the first step in negotiation is to just ask for what your buyers want.
Okay.
Right? My buyers want this closing date, they want this price, and they want these appliances. When the seller counters, that's going to tell you what's important to them. And now, you get to have additional conversations about it. And every time it's, are you willing to walk away from this deal over the appliances? So as a buyer's agent, you're talking to your buyer about that. As a listing agent, they're probably having the same conversation. Are you willing to walk away over these appliances? And I will tell you, I have had buyers and sellers dig in their heels over $500 worth of stuff. On a $600,000 house, right? It's not like that $500 meant anything to them. So there are cases where that happens, where people just get stubborn and they're locking horns.
Yeah.
And you're managing the process in the best way possible.
Like an example, this last deal, I needed $15,000 in closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was counseling my buyer saying, okay, you guys have no money to bring to the table, nothing. So when we put in this offer, we're asking for $15,000. Are you really saying you want the fridge? And are you really saying you want this? Well, we need so much from them right now that they may look at the paper and think we're crazy, but let's give it a shot. Is it wrong to say that, or should I just mark the everything that they need, no matter if it makes sense or not?
Yeah, if you're the only offer on the table, you start with everything that your buyer needs.
Okay.
And then you put together a really nice cover letter.
Okay.
And you make sure you're having good conversations with the listing agent. Okay. And you give them the chance to react. Yeah. Right? So yeah, I think that's fair. Any other ahas before we move on?
Yeah, just position, present, the 3 Ps. That was my aha. Prepare, present, and position.
Just thinking about those 3 steps.
Like when it comes to negotiation, I think, like with you going through all the steps, it kind of makes more sense, like how you can prepare the negotiation, how to present it to the client, in the position, go to the next step,
Yeah.
What is your client's position with what you presented and prepared,
Sounds like this class was worth your time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I took like 3 pages worth of notes.
All right, sounds good. Well, so now that you understand the 3 Ps approach and have a basic groundwork for how to negotiate, we're going to cover some tips and best practices to help with your negotiation. So turn to negotiation tips page in your participant guide. So it's important to remember that negotiating is a skill. It's learned and it's practiced. If you didn't write this down earlier, write down language of sales. At the point where you've done a couple of deals and you can afford to invest a little more money, like we have a ton of free classes in this office. As soon as you've got the money where you can invest in yourself, language of sales is the first class I would recommend and is the one that I recommend for everyone to take at least 3 times. It's a math, it's a group course, so it's a lot more affordable.
When is that?
No, it's a rolling schedule. I'm just trying to put it on your growth plan for your first year.
And what is it about language of sales? Is it like language in sales?
Yes. Yeah. So it's how to structure your sentences, tie downs. It's all the things around the language to say things in the right way. So that bully agent, they could communicate the same things using different words to not sound like a bully, right? But they've never taken language of sales. Wow. So they're just stuck in probably what they learned at a young age, right? So language of sales really helps with people who want everyone to be happy and are sometimes too nice. It can teach them how to ask for things in the right way, where it's a little more powerful, but you never feel like you're not being nice. You're just learning how to ask for it in the right way. You learn things like assumptive closes and things like that. So a lot of times we need to tell the other side what's happening. We're not asking for permission, right? And so it's just learning how to say things in the right way where you're not a bully, but you're also not too passive. Yeah. So language of sales, I'll put that on there. That'll also build upon everything we're talking about negotiation tips. All right, so above all else, be professional. Remember, your goal is a signed contract. So this is what you're driving toward, what both agents and clients have in mind. pay attention to communication and tone with anyone involved in the transactions to control what you say. If you create anxiety in your client or other parties, you're reducing their leverage in negotiation, right? So you keep your emotions between the lines so that you can help your clients manage their emotions. Continually refer to motivation. Remember I gave you those 3 qualifying questions to ask in the beginning? What is your motivation in buying or selling the home? Because you refer back to that. So when they're getting stuck over the $500, you go back to the, is it still your motivation to sell your home before Christmas?
Yeah.
Or is this $500 changing your motivation? And they're like, oh.
I like the way you phrase it.
Yeah. Don't reveal too much. Listen more than talk. Pauses are your friend. Keep your client's motivation close to your chest. Don't be attached to the outcome. That's really big for real estate agents. Don't be attached to the outcome. You don't have control over all those pieces, right? You can't get everything you and your clients need all the time. Don't let it affect your mindset. If a deal doesn't go through, if your client doesn't act on your recommendation, find a different win for your client. Do you think there's anything else that should be a best practice that we haven't covered today?
I would say communication, like negotiating the communication with all parties. But I think it might be another class that's going to go over that, because I think
going deeper into communication.
Because just with a personal experience, certain people, they're going to use their own lender, their own this, their own that, and it's like if you can't get a hold of them, and you have something that has to be turned in at a certain time, I think that's really important.
Yep.
That's really important.
Maybe ask for your advice. I feel like I like the 3D proof, but then I also feel like when you get in too much in that personal space, like I know that
there's nothing too personal.
True when it's about real estate, right? Like I don't know. I just be feeling like, am I intriguing too much? Like
you mean as far as questions you're asking your client?
Yeah. I'd be like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a gate and I don't want to do
as long as you're not crossing any kind of like their housing type of line, right? As long as you're asking innocuous questions, if someone doesn't, they're going to give you the information they want to give you. So if their answer is, I want a big backyard because I want to lay in it naked, they can share that with you or not share that with you, right? They could say, instead of sharing that they want to be naked, they could share it's just really important for them. They want a big enough backyard that they don't see other neighbors, right? Whether they share the naked part with you or not is their choice, right? But there's still, they have the ability to answer the question in however they want to share the information with you.
Yeah.
But you start to build a picture of, okay, this is what a yard means to them. This is what privacy means to them. So that you're not acting on your own definition of it. That makes sense.
And you can say to them that, that conversation, the Q&A is helping you help them. So they understand the purpose. Catherine the only time I really have a little bit of closure about asking questions is when it comes to finances. And I will say, I need to know enough to help you move forward, but the details are going to be discussed with your lender. And that gives them a sense of comfort that I'm helping them. I mean, the source of the source, but they don't have to talk to 10 people about their finances.
That I think is more of the finance side.
And I'll schedule with Patrice to do my boot camp in November. So come to that, because when I do the needs analysis, you'll be able to hear some role play. You'll be able to hear the questions that I'm asking the buyer and like how deep we're going. So that'll be good to go more into that. So I feel like we just did ahas, but what is your call to action from today's session? What did you write down that you're going to do after this?
And everything on my phone.
Yeah.
I think with all the information that I learned today, I'm going to put it on my schedule to maybe share the purpose and power of negotiation to my audience, whether it's social media. So that's my big challenge of today, like really changing my perspective on negotiation and educating other potential buyers and sellers. This is what negotiation, you know.
Cool.
It's more than just negotiating a price. It's negotiating a peace of mind and what you really want with your transaction.
Oh, I love it, because it is really important to get people off the price sometimes. Yeah, there's so much more about a deal to have conversations about. All right, this is what I want everyone to write down. Okay. How many of you are a year or less in the business? Okay, if you've done more than 15 deals, then you don't have to write this down. But everyone who's done, I want to make sure everyone hears this online too. Everyone who's done fewer than 15 deals, I want you to write down as one of your action steps from today's session is printing out and reviewing every single one of those contract documents I had you write down. That is an actual action item, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where first step is to find it in Instinet or transaction desk. First step is find it in transaction desk. Second step is to print. Third step is find a binder. Fourth step is right. You don't have to do that all at once. Just go find one. So make the goal so small. You know what? Log into transaction. Your first goal is to log into transaction desk, right? So make the goal so small that you can do it, and have that as your action item for this next week. Create that folder binder that you walk around with. You need to know those inside and out, whether you're a buyer agent or a real estate agent.
And make sure you print them in black and white, so they're free. Otherwise, 39 cents.
Now, if you're super tech savvy, of course you can just save it all in a file on your computer. I find I see things differently if I read it on paper when I'm first learning.
Yeah.
So that's why I suggest it. I have the slower learning style. All right, so we're almost wrapping up. So each day in Ignite, you grow in how you think, feel, act, and implement what you've learned. From learning and ahas, you move toward achievement of your big life, and that's what we're here for, right? To achieve our big goals. So write in your participant guide how you've grown in each of the areas. So this is we're in the do part. So there should be something in your participant guide where you get to take notes on that. So write a couple quick bullet points. Will take 1 minute. So you can take stock of how you've grown in these areas. How's your thinking changed? What do you feel differently about? Actions you take.
Just looking at the time, 9 to 2. So I don't know how much of a break is taken in between our lunch.
I don't think it's a break.
It's 11:30, so I was thinking we were going to 1. I think we're okay.
Oh, does the class go to noon or 1?
Noon. Noon? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, then we're really back.
No break. Yeah.
Yeah, and we only have half an hour to get 2 hours of work.
Yeah. So I guess we just do the do the first couple of exercises and just stop where we are.
Or just
that's where I was looking for two switch share with us. Okay, sorry, you guys got your answer?
Yep.
All right, shout them out.
My first one was to go 3 deep, not only during the home search consultation for the search criteria, but also with the negotiation. And I feel differently now having a strong model between the 3 P's and how to prepare.
People, love it. Anyone else? Give me at least one more.
Back to look into that sales, the language sales.
Action item? I like it.
What is it called though? Is it called language?
Language of sales. That's the name of the class.
Okay.
Yeah. So MAPS, MAPS, is the coaching arm of Keller Williams.
Okay.
All caps. And so they do group coaching sessions.
Okay.
So this isn't something you need to do your first couple of months in the business. There's enough other things that you're learning. But I would put it in your growth plan, for your first year. Once you've gone through Ignite, maybe even the second time through Ignite, and then that's where you can start stepping up. And the language of sales is something I took at least 3 times. in my first, 7 or 8 years. Yeah. And it helps with everything. Like getting stuff done at home. Okay. All right. So we are going to do a super focused daily success system time. We've got 30 minutes allotted for that. So Anne is going to take over from here. So thank you so much. There are the feedback forms. Have you guys been given the links for that? So I'm Catherine Ham, H-A-M, Catherine with a C. So if you could fill out mine for me separately, Anne's going to do a short session, and so so you can fill out hers for that session too. This is our first time doing this section, so your feedback will be great. And we'll definitely work on the timing of it next week. Thank you so much.
Input. So thank you, Catherine. Not really.
This one.
Okay.
Is what we said forward.
Okay.
I'll be right here.
Okay. So let's see where we are. I'm going to have to talk really fast and have you all listen really fast, but I'm happy to stay if you need to or want to. And I just wanted to add, because everybody learns differently, that, with the forms Catherine was talking about, or anything, if you're role playing, do it out loud, because sometimes hearing yourself, all of a sudden you understand something differently. I'll have a question in my head, it could be for days. And as soon as I ask the question out loud, sometimes I'll just say to my husband, hey, this has been on my mind. As soon as it's out loud, I know the answer, or it sounds different. So give yourself that break. So what we've been talking about really is building relationships. It's part of the prepare, present, and position is building the relationships, researching your information, whether it's for a listing or knowing how you're going to go into negotiation for a buyer, and the property review, finding that common ground, as Catherine talked about, and looking at where you need to adjust because there are concerns or challenges. And as we go through the daily success system, this is your calls. It's about making your list, making the calls, making notes, and we're going to go through that step by step. Unfortunately, because of time, some of actually making the calls and recording your information, you're going to have to do on your own, but please do it. It's super, super important. And the practice of doing this every day, if you think of an attorney or a doctor, they have a medical practice. They have a law practice. Every time we practice, whether it's role play or actually real play, we get better, we learn, we adjust, and we grow. So, having said all of that preamble, here's our daily success system. And what we're going to do for the next 2 hours, actually 30 minutes, is to go through this. So each day in Ignite, we grow in how you think, feel, and act, and implement what you've learned, from learning the ahas to the achievement of your big life. And I hope everybody's identifying not only the ahas, but what you want from that big life. And know that we're all here for you. One of the greatest things about Keller Williams is the camaraderie and the attitude that rising tide lifts all boats. And that's really foreign to some other people. So what we want you to do is to write in your participant guide or speak up about common themes that you found amongst these areas. I'm trying to read the screen, actually. I may need to move ahead. Hello? We're not there yet. Oh, I'm back on your page. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. That's why it didn't make sense to me. Okay. So in the role play, we want to take a few minutes, typically about 10 minutes a day, to prepare your list. Who are you going to call? Starting with your sphere is great. Also calling people that you just need to follow up with, whatever that is important to you. So this is a system that the top agents use all the time. They start a list and just call people at the top and call the next one and the next one without hesitation. Don't let the phone be heavy. Just pick it up and make that call. So you would do that for 10 minutes, and then for 45 minutes, is real play, is actually picking up the phone. So 10 minutes to prepare, who am I going to call, making that list, and then 45 minutes to make that call and build the relationship. The relationship is, calling as many people as possible with the goal of establishing and nurturing valued relationships so that when people are ready to buy, sell, or invest, they think of you first. And the conversation doesn't always have to be about buying and selling. Hey, Anthony, I've been thinking about you. I loved your hat, and that was a great, looks like a wicking shirt. And I just wanted to say, hey, you always look so prepared. Whatever I just said that didn't make sense. But, you find something to talk to someone about, is my point. And then for, a half an hour after those phone calls, you would take all the information you gained from those calls and put them into command so that you're creating this system. It gets out of your head. We used to say it gets on paper, but it gets into command. It gets into your database so that you can look back and say, oh, this is the weird conversation I had with Anthony, but he was really kind about that. Or this is a conversation I had about Brittany about balancing being really nice and making sure she was buying for her client. So these are the activities activities are the daily habits of success. We practice them every day and at night, and you continue to do it. It's part of the rhythm of your career for life, for your career. So use the pages in your participant guide, and we're going to work together on the activities. Absolutely support one another always, and I will all time, which is going to be short today, but let's go over. I'm going to go back one. Okay, so the daily success system consists of
10 conversations, 10 contacts, 10 notes, 10 likes, 5 comments.
Direct messaging to them. Yeah. Yeah, but add friending in there, yeah. And then did you, Brittany, you looked, that's on social media. Okay, so that's the 10-5 one. And that seemed really big to me at first, and then because I wasn't a Facebook person, but once you get into it and start to know, oh yeah, Brittany, you're doing so cool on this, and HA, I'm so glad we talked about you getting your license, and it becomes kind of easy, and you start to get to know each other.
So 10 likes, 5
comments,
and then 1 direct messaging.
Oh, wow.
Minimum. I mean, you can do more, but it's a really good balance. And that direct messaging I'm finding is really helpful, whether I'm talking to another agent or a client. It's a way, instead of texting, that you can go, hey, I really liked this, or sometimes I see a comment that someone has put on their page, and I want to respond to them in a way that's more personal, and I'll go to direct messaging. Or say, hey, that sounds really great. You and I have been talking about getting together for lunch. I'm not going to put that in a public space, but I can message the person, and then we start a conversation.
Or can you send me your mailing address?
Yeah.
You DM that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then send them a note or put it in the database or whatever. So are there things that you notice about this list, or how you would use the list, that are different today than they would have been in previous Ignite sessions?
I'm not good at the handwritten notes. Like, do people go get out like blank cards from CVS and start like, how do they really do?
You can buy Hergenreder or Amazon that say like, you get a generic, put a house on the front or whatever, right?
Yeah, put it in the mail.
So
It's a conversation that you have, right?
Oh,
So
right.
consultations.
So yeah, the notes, Brittany, are a follow-up. I mean, KW has some notes. I use a variety of things. I use probably have some in my folder I could show you. I use some KW notes. I use things that I go by Tuesday morning and buy it for cheap, or Amazon or whatever. It depends on if I'm trying to put across, this is my professional response to you, or if I'm trying to be a little bit more friendly and more personal. But it's a follow-up. It's, hey, Brittany, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I'm really excited to hear that you've started a new job and you're thinking about, buying a house in the future. Or maybe a house wasn't part of the conversation. Maybe I'm really excited to hear about your new career, and I would love it if we could get coffee sometime. It sounds like we have some things to talk about. But it's just a quick, we've gotten out of the habit of writing notes and using a stamp and putting something in the mail. And it's really personal. it's your hand on the page, and you're not really saying anything different than you would maybe over the phone. But well, text sometimes. My brother told me the other day I sounded like a telegram. So you don't want to do that. So you want it to be more conversational, but follow up. But the thing is, how often do you get personal mail? What happens when you do
Not
get a
as much
note?
as I used to.
What happens when you do get a personal note in the mail? How does it make you
It's
feel?
like, oh, then you throw it
excited.
away. I have to say, oh.
Yeah,
They are
So-
so thoughtful.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's where Facebook can give you a lot of ideas for personal notes. When someone does announce something cool happening, they'll get 200 comments on Facebook, like congratulations, they're pregnant, whatever else. How many handwritten notes are they getting? Right. So it's one more way for you to break through the clutter.
So good.
Yeah.
So should we go in their DM and say, hey, I realized that it was your birthday. Can I have your address? And then send them a cheap birthday card?
No, don't do all that. Oh, maybe.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm
Well,
thinking of it right now.
I had an agent and 2 clients recently ask me for my mailing address. Now they have my business card
Mhm.
and it's on there, but that's okay. Because I had said something or done something or remembered their birthday, or unfortunately, I've a lot of people lately who have lost someone in their family. They wanted to thank me. They wanted to thank me in that personal way and send me a note. And they just said, hey, can I have your mailing address? I'm like, sure, post on the box. So it's easy. But I was really glad that Keller Williams said write notes, because I'm more old school, and doing everything on Facebook to me was so impersonal.
Yeah.
And I've kind of
Help
adjusted.
balance it out.
But it's it is a balance. So forgive me for flowing through. Like I said, I'll be glad to stay. So, but the idea of what looks different here, the list may be the same, but what's different is now at this point in Ignite with receiving offers, as you did in the last class, and now negotiating, that you're at a point where you'd be going on appointments, getting agreements signed, and even getting the deal closed, as several of you have. And if you've achieved these, then you want to track your system. So by having those conversations, writing the notes, putting in command that you did those things, you are tracking it, and you can track the responses to them as well. All right. So, back to this. So as we've learned, the first job of a real estate agent is lead gen. I mean, we hear it all the time, lead gen, lead gen, lead gen. It's the basis of your business. It's the foundation. In addition to practicing conversations and dialogues, dialogues will prepare you for success. That is appointments, signed agreements, signed contracts, and the closed sales. I heard somebody say the other day, closing was the most fun activity they ever have in real estate. In my previous business, I used to say, going to the bank to make deposits was my favorite activity. Well, the close is great, because then I know my information is into the front desk, and Cheryl's going to cut a check that's going to show up in my account. But it's fun too to see everybody's reaction and to cheer on your client, whether they are selling or buying. And so, of course, before we get involved in conversations with our sphere and lead gen, you must remember and comply with TCPA and the do not call list. We review this in every Ignite session, and it's critical that you protect yourself and the market center. So I'm going to read something that they said I have to read, and then I'm going to ask for a volunteer to read TCPA. Today, you are going to make calls to your sphere and people in your database. Before you make any calls.
Are we to make those calls? If not, we can skip us.
No, but anytime you do it,
okay.
You need to know that. You think we need to skip because of time?
Yeah.
So
do something they can.
In your, please read TCPA. It's so important. I hate to skip. We're told not to skip, but I'm going to a little bit because of our time.
For only doing role play in the class.
Let's remember, and we can be really cool to say this out loud. I'll say first and then together. I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in a relationship with me. And I'm going to give you one clue from theater. You hit the verb. and it has more meaning. So let's just say this together. I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in a relationship with me. Yay! Yay!
Good job,
online.
Zoomers.
And so if you say that, have an affirmation, this is a really good one, before you pick up the phone, guess what? It brings a smile to your face, whether because you believe it or you thought it was silly, but if you look at yourself in the mirror and say it, you can't lie to yourself. And it's a great way to start. So Catherine, what time is it, please?
It is 11:47. Got 15 minutes.
So
we'll do this one role model.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So for the time we have left, we are going to role model the chosen conversation. I think we do it as partners as opposed to volunteer.
Yeah.
So refer to your participant guide. Recommend your client accept the offer on page C32. And for about 2 minutes, just
is it C?
Well,
the top of this says recommend your client accept the offer conversation. In your supplement.
They ran out of numbers, so they went to the letters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it C32? Okay, it is. Yeah, supplements in the back.
All the way back.
So what we're going to do for the time we have remaining is for about 2 minutes, just practicing on your own. It can be in your head, better yet, split up, don't look at anybody, and practice out loud, preparing your conversation. And then with your partner, and I'll call time, you'll do the same thing, switching back and forth for the time we have. Because every time you try the conversation, you're going to either hear yourself or the other person go, that's good, or I don't want to do that again. And we'll just keep practicing. Okay. So, yeah. So let's get started with that. I got much time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like you got cheated from your.
Well, I think we'll just figure it out next time. I mean, it was great. It's hard to say that though, because there was such good. I mean, you were doing great, and there was such good input. So we have to figure out how to manage that, maybe.
There's 2 things I think.
About starting at 9.
Yeah. I think we need to tell people not starting at 9 no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patrice and Bobby coming in. And they said no other group actually did the section. So I think you and I are overachieving first this thing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I think that if you get motivated, we're winning because no one else is even like reference the section.
When you gotta make some choices.
Yeah, and that's where that's what you make the choice, right? It's a 3-hour class, but you give it to your tutorial that covers. How are we supposed to do this?
I mean, I repeat myself, but not just representation.
Yeah, and that was one of the things where when I was telling you, like, I should be able to do this, and I didn't ever, there were times people were asking questions that weren't
Right. But you did a good thing saying, let's talk about that.
Yeah, some of them I saw, but I didn't do it every time.
What did you say? They're putting 20% down.
I'm using DAR.
What's the 20%?
It's still good, right? It's still a good research.
Yes, I mean, sometimes like, oh yeah, there's this agenda, well, no, there's not. But I can go to process and just copy and paste on it. It's a good job.
And a girlfriend of mine, longtime friend, used to be the granddaddy.
20% to your 100%. And then you put it 1% of EMD, so you have a profit rate of 1%.
So what do you think about that?
And she gave me.
I think that's a great offer, especially if you're compared to a conventional loan. You know, FHA, so you're putting more down, which is good. For a seller to see, a lot less information, a lot you have to do.
Yeah,
Like
well,
someone
the
that
last
has
2 years,
FHA
I've
loan,
actually been to like escalation wants to just be like, oh,
it's just a loan for most.
but yeah, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But yeah, so a lot of, there's no hard and fast rule for any of it. It kind of shifts depending on what's happening in the market.
Never criticize the
Okay,
so like, I would,
hopefully you've
I
been.
guess the whole point is like,
2 seconds.
have the same mindset.
All right, how many of you are practicing on your own or have started conversations? Have you started conversations or are you still practicing on your own?
Yeah.
Okay, well then keep doing that. And if you want, if you're stuck, if you want any help or us to listen, let us know and Catherine and I will come around to do that. I just volunteered.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep going, that's good.
So it'd be like, okay,
Just switch sides, you know, you take one side and then take the other side.
425? You're like, so did you read the MLS listing? Oh my God. Well, an offer is an offer. Well, I thank you for that, and I would obviously write back an email saying your offer is under review for the seller, you know. But I wouldn't counter offer, obviously, like right off the get-go. I would simply, yeah. I would simply keep that in, so it's already in writing, but I would write back to you, like, no counter offer at the time. This offer will be reviewed by the seller. Obviously, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't steer away your offer. I would simply put it to the fact that thank you for your offer, and it will be reviewed by the seller. Okay, I would contact the seller and send them every offer. That's another thing too. Like I think Monday, they were talking about how you want to put all your offers in a spreadsheet and then highlight the top 3. Yeah. So that's what I would do. Like I would just obviously put it all. No, the bill of sale is for conveyance. So purchase agreement. So on your purchase agreement. Agreement, right? Okay. So you have types of yep, personal property included. It's number 2. I was reading it.
yeah, I got it right here.
So obviously personal property includes like furniture, appliances, ceiling fans, garage doors, remotes, like the nitty-gritty stuff, right? Well, you have to put into the contract what is going to convey, like what's going to stay. And what, you know, that's just becoming an offer. So when I write an offer, you have to include everything that the buyer wants. And if the seller agrees to it, then obviously great. But he could be like, well, I'm taking this, or this is my kind of offer, I want this, I'm taking this, blah, blah, blah. So the bill of sale comes into play when you have items like I wrote down in the notes. You have items like attach include a bill of sale if the buyer wants to sell furniture, lawnmower, fridge, like actual like bigger items. Like, I guess and conveyance with the property, she's never used a bill of sale. So like, yeah, because you could, for example, like and there's a lawnmower sitting in the shed, and the shed's a part of the property, real property. The shed is automatically going to be a part of the property, but there's a lawnmower, maybe you don't want it. Yeah. Exactly. It's not like an actual window. No. Right. I just wrote down basically put everything the client wants in the contract, ask their expectations of what they want to convey, so what they want to come with. Put in the contract. Include a bill of sale if buyer wants to sell his furniture, lawnmower, fridge, etc. And then attach the bill of sale to the purchase agreement as a separate contract. Like for example, I had a CD, and literally all I did was just turn off the bill of sale on Google. And all it is just a formal written piece of paper saying, doesn't have to be notarized, it's just saying like, I give purchase rights to you. It is confusing. Maybe she's just didn't. And a lot of this stuff is included in the house. Not a lot of people are taking their dishwasher. Maybe they do. I think so you just have, exactly. That's insane. Well, yeah, my uncle works in real estate. I've never heard of people. Maybe you have to buy a washer, right? That's a common thing. You know, all your appliances are plugged in. Stove, countertops, or you could. So he was just like,
sometimes you gotta look.
I feel like
I mean, it's, you know, this is the first time we're following this, and this is the program. So we know,
yeah, I think it's so much better. Or obviously, you do the letter. I don't know. Short sale.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is we were trying. Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Well, and we wanted as a reason. You talked so much. You took the class. This was your first time, so we didn't want to leave because like Beth McCombs got here with Ally, and then Kristen got here, just because. But there's also some strength in the fact that you guys just took the class and you guys are following more. We used to be really loosey-goosey with, let me shut the book and let's just talk kind of thing. Yeah, right. And so coming, from trying to follow more and be structured teachers, so that's why it was good. But now, like, you probably have ideas that if Catherine can't teach this, then you can.
Exactly, especially if
And,
it's 30 to 60
so it's not always going to be tag teams. Yeah. Well, when I was working with, I was thinking about it last month. Yeah. And whether it's Zoom or whatever, it's just do it. We have 3 people, and we have 3 people that have sat there reignite this year. Tyler, Anthony has been in both or Zoom, but
other teachers is not.
They're not.
And you have a client.
Nice. Okay. You were worried about
So you should.
and that's what they've been doing, yeah.
$325,000. I don't see it now.
Well, and that's a good idea, because we can set that up and tell people, and also tell them on their own to go out and find those. I got a quick question for you though, that an agent told me. She's gonna do, okay, thank you. We're gonna do an off-market office exclusion. Is there an addendum for that, or in a regular listing agreement, in additional terms, do they put off-market? Yeah, of course. Fix my phone around. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So everybody got off on Zoom, it looks like, except for me.
All right, class, it is noon. If you want to keep role playing, of course, keep rolling with it. But I think, and was there any other closing statements you wanted to say for the role play?
I mean, I don't think so. I just really wanted to thank everybody for being here, and you all had great participation. I learned a lot from Catherine again. I always do, and I wish we could spend more time on this. I think you all have other things on your agenda this afternoon, but certainly if you have questions or things you want to talk about, I can hang out for a little bit, and if you don't know how to get me, feel free to ask, you can call, you can text, you can DM me. And yeah.
So there were a couple of questions that came up earlier that I said let's table that for later. So anyone who wants to stay and we can review those questions, and I'm happy to do some role play, feel free to stay. If you need to pack up and leave, no offense taken. So do whatever's best for you. And I know one of those questions came from Brittany, and if anyone else has something, let me know. But yeah, Brittany, and Mike, I got 2. Okay. Thank you so much for being here and your participation.
Just don't pay attention to the.
What's the first question?
The first one was the first one I asked today about, do you think listed agents are being a little untruthful?
Oh yeah. How do you know when listing agents are being untruthful?
About, they call you back and say, you're neck and neck with someone else. And the reason I feel like they're being a little untruthful is because literally the home was on the market for about 20 days. They say they had no offers. They waiting on my offer, right? The moment I submit the offer, like an hour and 3 hours later, magically you got a neck and neck offer. So it's kind of like, but how do you know, right?
Yeah,
you just.
It's a really good question. So that's where you can ask it and cover them with as many questions as quickly as possible. See if you can, trip them up. Like, is it a written offer versus verbal? Right? Is this an offer from someone in your office? Now, as a listing agent, I might start to get
I might start to get annoyed at a certain point and just tell you what I need you to know. And that's also maybe a good sign to say, like, look, I'm giving you real information and I need you to make a decision because I got a job to do, right? So there are little things you can do where just ask questions and try to get them talking and then just pay attention, right? Listen to their voice and intonation and pauses and stuff. I will say there have been very few times where my spidey senses have gone off. I'm like, is this real? I will say that majority of the time someone is being, it's okay to assume that someone is being truthful with you. If you have an escalation clause, then there is a requirement, you know, for them to show another offer. So if it's at least tied to the price or something like that. If you or your client are really worried about it, then you may be able to put a clause, you know, some sort of clause in there to say, we're willing to give these terms contingent upon you showing us that, you know, you did have another offer. Now that can sometimes go, you know, work against you though, if you're in a position. So let me give you a couple of scenarios where I had a multiple offer situation. I went back to one of the offers and said, you know, we have multiple offers. One of them is cash, so it's lower than yours. If you give us this price, we'll take yours. But we're not going to take your conventional loan or FHA loan or whatever. We're not going to take your loan for $1,500 more than the cash offer. But if you give us $10,000 more than the cash offer, that there's now a reward for the risk, right? Now we have financing to deal with, and we have an appraisal to deal with, and all these things. Now you're breaking far enough apart. But if you're neck to neck with a cash offer, we're going to go cash, right? And the agent, and I told them exactly what we needed with the terms, and they like changed one thing and not the other. And she sent it back, and we went with the other offer. And she was then yelling at me, "We gave you everything you wanted." I was like, "No, you didn't. I asked you to change 3 terms. You didn't. You argued with me about it, and you didn't give us the contract that we requested. The seller's now annoyed with you because you can't get, you know, you can't make the changes to the contract." And so they felt more comfortable, you know, going with the seller one. And so that's where, if you're sitting there and the buyer's second guessing everything, so you as the buyer agent is second guessing everything, and I'm sitting here going, "No, I'm telling you exactly what you need to do if you want this house." And the buyer's like, "I don't trust them, I don't trust them, I don't trust them," and they don't do it. Well, they didn't get the house, right? And so that's happened in a number of cases where the buyer agent and the buyers decided not to trust, and they weren't chosen. So that it always goes back to that. So I've had buyers say, "Are we sure we need to do this price? Are we sure that it's that competitive?" You know, whatever it is, where they're double checking. And I was like, "You know what? I don't know. I don't know if it really has escalated to 350 or not. Is it worth it? You know, is holding firm at 440 worth it to you if you find out that someone else paid, you know, I can't remember what number, 340. If someone else paid 350 tomorrow, no, it's not worth it. We're totally willing to pay 350. We just don't want to have to pay 350 if someone else isn't right there, right?" I was like, "I totally get where you're coming from, but we don't know, and we have to make this offer without knowing."
And it's the same thing when you've got those call to actions of all offers that due at Monday at, you know, 8 to 9 a.m. But you have to put in your best offer. So you always ask them, you know, whatever, like Catherine said, when you feel most comfortable that if you find out it sells for a little higher, is this the one to go all in on? Because you don't know when they have those call to actions if they're going to get 1 more or 10 more. So it's and you got to get them through thinking, you know, instead of being combative, what are you really willing to do?
But that's why I think it helps to just ask questions, you know, politely, to be like, "Oh, okay, well, what's the turnaround time that offer gave you?" You know, it's like, "What's our deadline now?" Yeah. So those questions can be asked in a very generic way, like, "Oh, what is our response deadline?" Or you can get more specific about their contract, right? What deadline did that contract give you? And it just kind of, you know, like,
You'll see if they're like, you know, they're trying to think through. but just assume people are good.
Yeah.
You know,
I did, but I was
because
thinking,
an agent that's had it on for that long and finally has an offer, they're not gonna risk pissing you off or making you aggravated and go, well, okay, well, if you got another offer, go for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, yay, we finally got one that might be, yeah.
That's what made me raise my eyebrows on. I'm like,
It happens, so
That happens all the time.
Ask her.
Yeah.
I mean, Amber had an offer on her house and they had said they were accepting offers, but of course seller can accept at any time. Amber had an offer that was due, the response was due at 7 p.m. Another agent said, we're gonna put in an offer. I said, call and tell them they need to get it in by 6:30 so you can see what it is. Is it gonna compete with this other one? And they got their offer in. And so when she got her first one, she could legit say, I don't have any offers. So she wasn't telling a falsehood. And then the other one got theirs in and they did beat them out. So it can feel that way, but it can happen. But you know, bouncing off of that, I mean, it's one thing when you wonder if somebody, let me say this differently. Listen to what somebody says as well as what they don't say. I had a listing agent recently say to me, well, you know, we've gotten another offer. They didn't say we were neck and neck, it was higher, it was lower, it's just there's another one. And they're trying to freak me out and go, oh my God, there's another offer. And I'm thinking, Patrice knows I do this. Patrice is in my head going, be the voice of calm, present the information. So I go back to my clients and say, they have another offer. Of course, their first question was, what does that mean? We don't know. We don't know. And we worked with an escalation clause. So, you know, we ended up, it was good in the end. But think about what they've said and what they haven't said. And don't just, you know, knee jerk. And then what you were saying about, you know, going back to the open-ended questions, it's not always price, right? I mean, I had a conversation with someone recently about moving, and I really can't remember now which end of the deal I was on, but somebody said something about, well, we could do it quicker. It was, actually, we need to slow it down. And so it's what is important about a closing date?
It gives you another chance to circle back to the agent and say, great, what's important to your seller? What's going to be most important to your seller when they're comparing these two offers? I also like getting really specific to say, is there a clause in that other contract that they offered that I didn't think about yet that your seller would like to have? So a lot of times they're going to push you for a generic highest and best. If the other offer is not great, they're going to try to give you as little information as possible. And all of that's fair. Like a listing agent's not required to answer any of these questions. But if it's in my seller's best interest, I am going to answer that question because I want to get an even better offer, right? I'm always trying to see who can give us the best combination of price and terms. So every situation is a little bit different, and how much a listing agent can share with you is going to be a little bit different. But that's where you can have some powerful questions to ask. Is there a clause that they offered that I didn't even think of yet?
Now, before, I want everybody else to ask another question because I just have a really one that hit me in the gut while I was in class.
Okay, is there anyone who has to go who wants to ask a quick question before they go? Okay, are you cool with Brittany holding the floor? All right, let's enjoy your question.
So, I was doing a showing about 2 months ago, and we're sitting outside in the parking lot, and we're talking about the house, and this lady walks up to me. I walked up to her. She see my logo on my car and say, can you sell my home for me?
Yes.
All right. I'm moving the first of the year. I want to clean it out. Wait, I don't want you to see it yet. I got some things, but can you sell my home for me? I'm like, absolutely. I will call you tonight. I'll get some information from you. I'll give you my information. Let's just talk tonight. I wanted to see where you're moving to. Just talk, right? Had 2 phone conversations with her, been following up. Hey, happy Monday. How things are going? Decluttering, great. All right. She said, follow up with me in October. Okay, I'm going to follow up with you the first week of October. How does that sound? What day works best for you? Right? Doing all of that. I talked to her the first week of October. She's like, hey, I'm still not ready. I still want to declutter a little bit more. I've been hauling my things to North Carolina. I said, okay, do you need some more time? She said, yes, please. And can I ask you, how great are you with selling houses? Obviously, I'm new and never sold a house before. So I said, well, you know, yet. So I said, hey, no worries at all. You know, I work at Keller and Williams. We have such a large office, and you know, you definitely have support. So yeah, the market is still a great time for these buyers. I'm familiar with your townhome area, which I am. I showed 3 homes out. I mean, showed 3 homes out, right?
Yeah.
She said, okay, well, I'll call you back soon. Okay, I'm still moving. Today in class, she just texted and say, hey, I just sold my home and I put it on the market.
Oh, ouch.
I mean,
You couldn't have done anything more than what you done.
okay, like, so I mean, while you're talking, I'm like, oh.
What probably happened is she told a neighbor and they said, my aunt, niece, nephew wants to get in here, and they worked an off
You haven't
market
opened
deal.
yet, nothing signed yet. Yeah. So I think there's two tips to talk about here. One is all of that is so much more painful when you're a newer agent than when you're early on, right? They talk about like the best way to solve that is by getting a lot more leads.
Yeah.
And so when you've got a full plate of business, it's like, so when you're one of the ways you categorize clients is A, B, or C. A is someone who is ready, willing to buy or sell right now, you know, the next 14 days or 30 days. B is, you know, longer time. Everyone's got different days that they put to it, like 30 to 90 days. And then someone may reach out to you when they're a year out, you know, for buying or selling. And so they're a C buyer or seller. Like there's not as much work to do right now, right? But when we're a new agent, we still pour all of our time into those C buyers and sellers, right? And this really, and you can see all the leads that you have in front of you. So it's really painful when you lose it. So just know that's completely normal. And it's something you're going to move through. And the best way to move through it is just to keep like lead generating and you know, backfill with more leads. You're going to get to a certain point in your business where you've got health, you're working with enough healthy, you know, you've got a pipeline of A and B buyers where those C's, they may drop off and it's not even going to hurt because you've got more important people in front of you. So it does get better over time. And
I didn't respond yet. Do I say?
I would, if I can add too. And first of all, you were great, spot on following up. Most people probably would have stopped following up at some point.
I will say something about that.
Yeah, but when I respond to her, wish her well, congratulate her, I was so looking forward to helping you. Who else do you know that I might be able to reach out to? So try to even get a lead from her feeling bad for not using you and see if she's talked to any, you know, when you shared that with any of your neighbors, is there anyone that I should talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Continue to do the check and follow up, you know, like once a month, just say, hey, I want to see how everything was going for the center for home because it could fall through. Just stay in communication because some of my biggest referrers are people who have never actually bought or sold with me. You know, just built relationships with them. So nothing is completely, exactly. Still win her over by showing yourself as a professional, and it's possible she'll, you know, turn into a referral source. Maybe she realizes she needs an attorney and you recommend Vesta. And so you still look good at Vesta, right? Like you just gave Vesta business. And so there's still things that can come from it that help create that good momentum for later. The one thing I would say that was excellent follow-up, I would try to close for the appointment sooner.
But if I was thinking, if you go to an appointment, is that a listing appointment? You have to sign something, or I just go look at her home? Like, what are you doing?
You're building the relationship and starting.
Yeah. So we have committed to sell forms that we sign. We get someone to sign a form with us saying we want to hire you. That's something that
Or is that a listing agreement, or
it's not the CBR MLS listing agreement, because once you sign that, the days on market, it's a document that one of our attorneys helped us create. So it's a pre-listing agreement.
And like we're gonna work together.
Yeah. We're hiring you. We want you to start spending money and your time on helping us do amazing to prepare the home.
okay?
So that we've got someone locked in with us Now, can we release someone if circumstances change? Of course, but it's really nice to have that mental, like, agreement there.
In a case like that, probably if the neighbor came around, then you'd say, well, you need to call Catherine. Yeah, because I'm going to be working with Catherine. She made that commitment.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of reasons to like, oh, okay, I can understand that you're decluttering. Have you considered having some of your furniture in place or staging? Oh, no, I haven't considered that. Well, I know your house isn't show ready yet. Let me come out now. So you and I can walk through, we can talk about what projects should be done or maybe should not be done. Because in this market, you don't have to spend as much money as the seller. Kind of help you choose some furniture that we should leave in place for the professional photos. So your home will look staged without, having to pay the money for a professional stager. So that way we're showcasing your home in the best way possible. So before you clear everything out, it actually makes sense for me to come out sooner than later. Are you available this Friday or is Monday better?
Yeah, I was just thinking like listing appointment a couple months early.
Well, no, that's fine. You just,
that's fine. Thank you.
just to build that rapport so that maybe if she got the offer, she would think, let me call Brittany and see if this is a good offer. Should I? And then you kind of work your way in there.
So before I had the commitment to sell forms, I would get people to sign a listing agreement, but I would date it for the day that we wanted to go live. So when I submit it to MLS, it's dated properly, but I still have them signing something with me at the appointment. Yeah. So they're mentally making the decision and hiring me, right?
I actually do it a little different. I get them to sign it. Like I have somebody that originally we were going to list in September, but then their HVAC broke and blah, blah, blah. But so we still have it. I had her sign it and I've been sending her HVAC, painters, people to get it ready. And I said, we're going to sign this now. And I'm going to be looking at properties coming on the market so we know what to price it. I'm going to start working, like she said, I'm going to start working for you now. Then when we know the date, I'm going to have you sign it again and date it when we're about to go live. So it locks her in early while she's decluttering and getting the house painted and stuff. So I have an agreement. It didn't go anywhere, but in her mind's eye, we're working together.
Yeah, it's an agreement to work together and they feel like they're getting, and they are, this huge value from you because you're guiding them prior to the listing going live. And Teresa's about to tell me if I did this right, but leaving that date, either changing the date or leaving it blank, I just put in a new date and get them to initial it.
Yeah,
it's not even form.
Yeah, I mean, it's
because I don't want it to be, oh, that didn't really count.
I would probably, in the face of an audit, I don't know how they would see that. You could say we were going to, things happened with them, they decided to postpone. I would just do a clean one because 3 months ago in August, when I first talked to these people, the price would have been one thing. And so, I just like a clean, one dated current. That's, but I don't know, it's 6.5 dozen.
Yeah, whatever works for you. But I think that's always the name of the game when you're talking to any buyer lead or seller lead. I think I had like a 95 or 97% close rate when I had a buyer face-to-face with me at a buyer consultation. If they met me for a buyer consultation, I was getting them signed. 95, 97% of the time, right? So my biggest goal in those conversations was what objections needed to be handled so that I would get them to agree to the buyer consultation. That was my goal. So same thing with the seller. I want to meet them face-to-face as quickly as possible because that starts to establish the relationship. And if they're really comfortable with me, they may not then call a second or a third agent. But if I'm just giving them a call for the next couple of months and then their neighbor recommends someone and their sister recommends someone, well, all of a sudden there's a lot more people in play. Because if it's just phone calls, there's no loyalty build up yet, and there's no sense that I've done anything for them. So my goal is to try to get face-to-face and in that appointment as quickly as possible. Now, you may ask several ways and they may really push you off like, no, want no one in the house right now. You can't control all that. I can't always get in front of them, but I'm going to ask in multiple ways.
You can also say, because some people are embarrassed, they don't want you to see the house yet because it was a mess or whatever, then say, oh, no problem, I'm happy to meet for coffee. you know, and that way you're still getting in front of them, but not actually seeing the house. If they didn't want you in yet because it was
Yeah. No, anytime people are talking about doing projects, that's an easy in for me. I'm like, okay, great. I know that your house isn't show ready and that's okay. This is the perfect time to have me come in your home, because 9 times out of 10, I'm able to save you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Most people like to save money, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then do the tie down, right? Like,
Thank
would you be excited about saving money, right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay, have me in your home now because there's a good chance I'll save you money. Oh, you know. Cool.
Well, thank you guys. What do you want to tell them?
Thank you.
Okay. And so for you, people with listings, AJ and Kieran, and you just negotiated yours and went through that. Just good information on both the buyers and the listing side.
If you really like this presentation, then 5 stars, Catherine Ham, HAM.
Did you tell them how?
I don't know what they have.
Here's the,
If you didn't like it, then don't bother filling it out.
I think most of you guys, and make sure you do one for Ann too. So you'll have to go through and do it twice. It's not long. Y'all remember how to do it? You go to kwueval.com, region Virginia, event type Market Center, name of course, Ignite, and then this was the negotiation.
Yes.
And then put in
section 18, negotiate.
Instructor name, Catherine with a C, Pam, and Ann Hergenreder. So you can look on our Ignite stuff. It has their name spelled out.
Awesome, thank you.
But yeah, do those surveys for both of them. For the PC group, that was our half-an-hour wrap-up. So since we're doing PC in the field at 2, I'm going to give you all time to go get lunch. And who's coming to the PC?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay. What, honey?
What are we doing? I didn't know.
Oh, we're going to check out a new build at Mosaic. We're going to go look at a new subdivision.
That's the 55.
Yep, it's a 55 by Shell. They were here yesterday in the team meeting. So we're going to go out there and check it out so you guys can see, and I'll walk you through what you do with buyers with new builds too. I'll be with you in a second. You're going to come in my office or you want me to do it here? Well, you're sitting there. I'll come here. If you've got a quick question, and then I have to run to the restroom, and then I'll be there with you, Aja. Yeah. Are you good? Okay. For one of them,
What's your name?
for what? For the repair addendum? Okay. So should I show the photo up with them? You sent the repair addendum yesterday, both of them, Sunday. Then I would email both of the agents and say, I just want to confirm you've received my repair request on Sunday. They might have. Oh, you did? Then they're still working it.
So one of them has not been meeting, the other one that's not going to send anything. And we're on that. And they said I don't want to say anything writing, but they will get this one.
Well, they've got to respond to your repair request.
Yeah.
So just tell them that there has to be a response to the repair
So yeah, that kind
request.
of interests me.
And if you
I have
read
family and
it,
friends that are.
They have
real estate
7
agents.
days
So
from when
kind of
you
just let me
send
know
it
that.
to respond, and y'all can continue to negotiate. And you know, depending on the loan type, unless it's cash, you know, just say it's, we have to have that as part of the contract. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and just follow up with them. And are you using a transaction coordinator? You should be. And they do all this for you. I know, so the transaction coordinator who does this, you would still, as the agent, go through the repair request and talk to your client about what they want and all that. that create it, they're the ones following up. They're the ones also making sure that when, the contract says the appraisal has to be ordered within, I think it's 15 days of ratification. Once you start getting close, the TC, make sure is that done, and make sure, the termite inspection has to be done by the seller side. They coordinate all the kind of pieces, and you pay them at closing.
Correct.
So it's not cash out. Like I'm helping this young kid, a friend of mine.
Especially with contractors.
I know.
Having things
But
subcontractors.
for me, I'm
You need
busy.
to
I'm running
get
around.
things established at a certain time and a certain date to fulfill their jobs, and it runs into some headaches sometimes.
To keep all that stuff on track. And for me, the peace of mind, being able to sleep at night, not worrying, did I do that? Where am I all day? Yeah, okay. Keep track of that buyer's checklist and make sure you're going down that. Yeah, you're doing great. So, but just keep in mind, there's leverage. Well, see, and that's why the teams have somebody, that's what you were paying part of your commission, was for the marketing, was for the TV, all that kind of stuff. No showings yet? Let me go in, I'm gonna, because when I looked at it, remember the other night I looked at it, it said it looked like I saw where you had blocked for the unit house. And then your other ones that were starting, it looked like they could set up showing starting at 8 a.m.
Correct.
So, well, oh, and I announced it yesterday at the TV. You know how we do new listings? I announced
Yeah,
it.
it's definitely was a
Are you
different
doing
process.
social
And
media
obviously,
to promote it?
me being a month into real estate, I
Okay, do
don't
some
have
on
the
Facebook
first
too.
transaction yet, so it's,
And you're doing an open house
I'm
this
just, I'm
weekend,
anxious,
right?
I'm like looking forward to it.
So, I know that you're back on my team, so it was 13.
Just, yeah, it could be the open house coming,
For about a year.
but yeah, if you don't start picking up showings.
Yeah, I knew you could.
Yeah, because it looks great.
Yeah,
So
we're,
just keep in touch with
so
them
yeah, I know exactly something.
about price. I remember, but it's not what they feel, and all you say is, it's what the market feels, yeah, okay. All right, you're welcome, good luck. All right, let's run
Yeah.
But that just made me realize, okay, like they could come, because you know, they cut it in. And so if they're planning a recession next year, companies really gonna be preparing a year. So you already know. Oh, yeah, see,
So, I mean, that's huge. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it. That's something where I would sign, but people told me they didn't credit, so I'm trying to see what I really.
You know what you need to do? Yeah, you know, you know what you need to do. I ain't conversation with nobody, but the stuff I done went through in life, you'll be surprised. Yeah, girl, and then I was like on the L, girl, I was just going through so much medical stuff.
So when
like,
you were
I'm just
contacting
blessed that
locally?
it's ridiculous. Because when I tell you I can walk,
I was, and you can't count. Yeah, that place has grown tremendously.
And then I was just like at home.
I work for a small Class A company, Class A contract.
Well, I would say that you
I've reached out, obviously, to the friends and family, I've sent text messages, I've mailed a few letters to people. Yeah, I mean, I've done the minimum, but there's always something else you
already developed. So you just put, like, if you want to, on the front page, like your name, phone number, and then look through, there's one page, I think, that says, like, your experience. You don't want to have that in there. You don't have an experience, take that out. Okay. Don't leave a blank page, because then they're gonna be like, it shows up more, like that. So go through and create it. If you have time, once you're setting up the appointment with them, you want to like go online, see if you have a picture of your house. And you can put that on it, so it's just like, don't prepare just for that, but keep that template. Okay. We have a listing presentation. It's gonna help you. You're not gonna sit there and read through it all. So go, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at your house, see what kind of staging you might or not need. All run comps, then I'll come back to you and discuss what the market is saying the price should be. Ask them, one question you want to ask them is, are they the only person on the title or deed? You want to ask them what their fee on it, right? Because if they owe $370 on it, and the market's only showing selling at $380, how much they owe? Yeah, how much they owe on it. You want to get them thinking, because there's going to be, they're going to have selling expense, closing costs, and commission.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Make sure you can get them to sell the house where they're comfortable, right? If they've had, you know how people can sometimes take out a home equity loan or a second mortgage, ask them about that, because you don't want that to come in as a surprise at the end. Oh, I forgot, I had $30,000 I took out 2 years ago. So look at the listing presentation and command. And there are, that script book, the conversation book.
Some value and.
That has a conversation about listing.
We'll do that.
Okay. And then you'll say, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get your house ready. We're gonna list it, because it's hard to find a house.
My grandparents live in Lancaster.
So we should get it on the market.
Right down Senora Road.
As soon as we get a contract, we start.
Probably near Kilmarnock.
Now, timing. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
say.
The dude fishing out of New Morning. Yeah, that's fine.
To have a 45 or 60-day close, so you have the time to find your place. You know how they show you rent back to you, right?
I actually know somebody
Yeah.
maybe listing a house
Tell them
out
we
that way.
can work around that.
So if you're working on that, feel free to come on.
So you ask them, and there are questions in the pre-listing package.
Correct. Yep.
Do you know what kind of house you want? And if they say, I own this house outright, you know, 400,000, I want to buy a 300,000.
No. They're actually near,
They're not gonna
like
have to.
Lifestyle. So
Some people may say, I
they're thinking
just
about
want to get a loan.
So-
Well, sometimes just meeting
So then
and.
find out more about what comes next, so we know how to position a list to do that. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
doing that with several people.
What they're looking to buy.
No, I mean, information.
Right.
Yeah, I'm asking the question.
It was back in the 90s.
It's like, really?
No, I'm thinking about songs, like, you know, that back in the days,
Possibility, not always.
You know, if you started to say, like the OT.
Yeah.
If someone starts to say.
I'm thinking like a
Okay, so what link are you sending that?
You know, that's your brain.
Oh, your app, okay. So have you done that yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so like what
A lot of people
say, let me show you my app, I'll send that to you. Oh, and here's how you can easily share it with anyone else, so you want to get it up.
Yeah.
But then tell them, say, you know, that way, if you're looking at what's on the market now,
Yeah.
just know that actually your house
You got a point
sells.
there.
This can just
I
give
don't
you
know what
some
your friend's
baseline
situation is,
area.
It's kind of with, in general, all the other people I talk to, you know, buying houses, they're just on the fence, you know, haven't committed, haven't leaped yet.
I'm gonna have to see, yeah,
For a lot of people, sometimes
because I think that's called
Right.
the
So,
brain.
yeah, so,
Something like
you
that.
know, get all that straight. If he's
How's it look?
comfortable,
Yeah.
if you feel like you know him well enough to go to his house.
No, I don't know how to. I can take my.
You don't, okay, first, go see the house, and then I'll get, let's do first things first. Just like you did on your house, you'll schedule, you'll get the sign on yours. Bye, Janine. Okay. Are you coming to the thing today?
Are we gonna be here?
No, we're meeting out there, we're going to that mosaic.
Why don't you?
Mosaic, now, just hash
Yeah.
You know, something that.
I mean, I put it on the page, on the PC page, yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, I'll check it.
No worries,
Oh, why don't
okay,
you
if I
go
see you,
on?
I see you,
I'm
tell
gonna
it,
do
and I see. So, yeah, so set up the appointment and say, oh, you know, I'm bringing fiance, is that okay
Yeah.
with you? He may not want to sit there in front of us and talk about how much he owes on the house or take down a loan. So in that case, go meet the Starbucks, right, and then if he's talking about getting a mortgage, if he says, I'm gonna sell the house and I'm going bigger, right? So they're selling the house to go smaller, and then they're selling the house to take the money and go bigger, then he would need more.
Yeah.
So then you can tell him, you can put him in touch. Chris Hart, you know,
Thank you so much. I got your card, like I said, if I come across anything out that way, I'll be sure to call you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, you too.
Bye, Ann.
Bye.
Thank you, Ann.
You're gonna do so well.
Oh, thank you.
She's doing great, yeah. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate you teaching. Okay, so, yeah.
You out of here?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
All right. Sounds
So
good.
when you're in the meeting, I would say,
All right.
let's focus
I
first
see
on the
that.
listing, because that's gonna lead us into buying. And then, you know, when you talk about the listing, you can say, we can set it up if we need for a 60-day close to meet the time. We can talk about doing a seller, possession by seller. Say there are opportunities that will bridge your transition as much as possible. Now, and then walk through the house, you know, tell him that you'll send him, what I don't like to do it in person. I make my notes, I walk through the house by myself. If you want to listen, Tyler, this is good information for you too. I tell sellers, because they will walk you through the house and go, this wall was green and I painted it and I added these bookshelves, and you're like, it'll take you a month of Sundays. So what I tell them, I say, here's the pre-listing packet and the listing information. Why don't you sit down and look through those? So if you have any questions, I'm gonna look through the house by myself. Are you comfortable with me doing that? Because I want to look at it by myself like another agent or a buyer would. And then, you know, And so then you can make your notes like this is, the closets are cluttered, you know, the walls need to be wiped down, you know, like.
What if the house is not clean? It's not.
So that's why what I'll say is then when I get back to the table and they go, well, what do you think? How much am I gonna have to do? Say, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna follow up with an email and I'll say, these are the minimum things that we need to do. And then these are my suggestions to get you to get more money. And that's where I'll take out, instead of saying your closet looks like it's gonna explode with stuff, I'll say, take out, you know, half of what's in the closet, fold things neatly. Think in terms of when you go to a, like a new listing, how they have like cute little folded table towels and everything. Say that's how we want to make it look. So take out everything out of the closet, pack what you're going to be taking, donate what you're not, you know, and that's what you have to do. I mean, this lady's house that's getting painted, I mean, she's got 2 kids in a townhouse. I mean, every closet, like every time I opened it, so she's going closet by closet
before you list it.
Before I list it, because
you have to,
to get them more money and make this little townhouse look cuter and nicer, we've got to clean it out. So, and I'll make that list and, you know, get rid of half of what's in the pantry, get rid of half of what's in the cabinets, if you need it. If it's a nice big kitchen with tons of cabinets, you just want people to be able to see there's room, right? You want to tell them to take down any personal pictures. You want minimal things on the wall because it makes it look more open, but tell them you'll follow up after that meeting. And then you can say, well, your Mickey Mouse collection is lovely. We don't want anything to happen during people coming through. Let's pack those up. So in other words, going, you know, you're a grown-ass adult. Why do you have Mickey Mouse everywhere? Mm-hmm. But that way you do it in a list, okay? You don't call it clutter, because to them, it's like, this isn't clutter. This is all of my grandkids' artwork. I love this. This isn't clutter, right? So you want to be careful with what you say. Yeah. Okay? So set up the appointment, look over the listing agreement. I know you did it for yourself. Look over your listing agreement again. Do you have his address or anything yet?
Not yet.
So when you set up the appointment, say, hey, Roger, whatever his name is, before I come out there, can you give me your address? That way you'll get an idea for what you might be walking into or whatever. You can loosely look at comps. Don't spend 4 hours looking at comps until you've got the listing, because then you're just working, you know what I mean?
Right.
And if he says, here's what people do, y'all listen, Tyler.
Listen.
People, okay. Sometimes people go, what should I list it for, right? And then you go, well, once we do the listing, I'm gonna pull all that data and research and really look it over and come up with my suggestion to you. And if they go, well, I just want to know your number. Because sometimes people get you to come out there, ask you what they should do to list it, ask you at what price they should list it, and then they do a for sale by owner. So don't give everything away where they don't now need you. Okay? So people will play you.
When I do the listing agreement, sign it 90 days or 6 months. What do you suggest?
Oh, I mean, 6 months is normal in this market because of inventory. 90 days is, you should sell it 90 days.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you talking about clearing the closet and everything prior to photo? Like,
oh yeah.
photographs?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because when you're getting photos, you're about to go live.
For sure. That's what I was just doing, yeah.
No,
I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, like, so while she's getting painters, we were waiting for they had a home warranty company. They were having to go through the HVAC. I said, while you're waiting on getting painters and HVAC done, be clearing out. And I text her every week. What you do, what you work on this week? Mm-hmm.
In your house?
They have no furniture out on their little back patio. I'm gonna run and get 2 like brightly colored little Adirondack, those little plastic ones.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And a potted plant, and I'll stage it and then keep that stuff you know, in my storage unit.
Very. Is that, you got a listing, AJ?
Yeah, almost. Yesterday, I was
house?
working with my fiance because I'm a dental assistant too,
Yeah.
and office manager. So I was, and he's like, "Oh, AJ, where have you been? I missed you." Because he go to other office. I said, "I'm a realtor right now." I said, "Oh, you know, I called you." I said, "I didn't get your phone number." Anyway, he said, "You know what? I want to sell my house. I want to buy another." I said, "Awesome." I give him my information. I get his email.
Good.
I got his phone. I know him for a long time, but I never, you know.
See, that's what I mean. Like, he knows you're new. You said, "Oh, I'm a realtor now," and he's like,
And
"I want you to sell my house." They don't
And
care.
he knows it because when he used to do,
Those
he
people
has
are the
a
best.
bracelet and stuff, and I care for him every time he comes. I hold
So,
his hand, and he's so
You'll get,
that.
you'll get his, you'll sell his house and then you'll buy him.
Yeah.
So you get
She'll
the
get to
double
you.
transaction.
Yeah.
Good for you.
All right.
Thank you so much for your help.
Command, look this over.
This is the for both, right? This is the listing.
Yeah.
Because
There's a couple of them out there.
I already start doing
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
but I didn't finish it because I don't have the address.
Right.
They asked for the
Right.
address. Yeah. I got
But
you.
start looking that stuff over, set the appointment up for maybe a couple days out so you have a little more time.
Right. Right.
But then once you have this, you will have this for all your others.
Ever. Yeah. Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Patrice.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. I'm gonna
Yeah.
send you that email. I know I sent you the listing checklist before, for yours. I'm gonna resend
Yeah,
it.
please. Thank you.
And then, listen, start a folder on your computer when I send you these resources to keep them all in one place.
Yeah, I will do it. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
you're welcome.
I'll see you there.
Okay, great. I'll see you guys there.
And are you gonna, because I'm gonna go Saturday and Sunday for open house. You wanna come Sunday?
Yeah, I'll do
Should
that.
I be with him or he go by himself?
What are you
For
talking
open
about?
house?
For what open house? Yours?
Yeah.
I'm just shadowing you.
He's
so
just learning.
okay.
Yeah.
You're
I'm learning too. I never, but I.
Well, this is her own, so she hasn't even shadowed yet.
Yeah, but I'm gonna keep, I already print the fire,
It'd be good.
Oh,
to-
hold on.
Yeah, just like a
Yeah.
few papers with the information about the house.
Yes, that's what I did.
Everything like that.
Do a sign-in sheet.